Hello everyone, welcome back to the Paranormal M channel. How have you all been lately? Still having trouble sleeping? I'm really excited to be here sharing my paranormal experiences to help you relax and get a better night's sleep. If you enjoy this kind of content, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos. And thank you so much for sending in your own paranormal experiences. Now, get into bed, turn on your nightlight, and let's listen together. So this was maybe 6 years ago now, back when my family and I were living in this little apartment that had two balconies, one facing the street and another in the back. And the back balcony was the one that messed with me. Behind our building, there was this odd stretch of land that didn't feel like it belonged in the middle of a neighborhood. It was overgrown and messy, and you could see the broken down remains of what looked like an old house. Just chunks of walls and rubble. And off to one side, there were these stone shapes half sunk into the ground that honestly looked like a tiny, neglected graveyard. Not dramatic, not movie style, just wrong in this quiet, forgotten way. At the time, I wasn't someone who believed in ghosts, like, at all. I'd tell myself it was superstition, people scaring themselves for fun. But every single time I stepped onto that back balcony and looked out, I'd get this heavy feeling in my stomach, like the air was darker over there, even when it was sunny. I kept brushing it off as imagination, stress, bad vibes, whatever. Then one afternoon, I went out to that back balcony to film a quick video for social media. I picked that spot on purpose because it was usually really quiet. No traffic noise, no people yelling, none of that. Just stillness. I recorded, went back inside, and started editing. I was cleaning up the audio in Audacity, wearing headphones, just doing my normal thing, when I suddenly heard this burst of noise, like sharp static, almost like a quick screech. It lasted maybe 2 seconds, 3 tops, and then it stopped. And the thing is, it didn't sound like a regular glitch. It sounded like something intruding, like a sudden interference. I replayed it a few times, trying to convince myself it was wind or a mic issue, but it didn't match anything else in the clip. Still, I told myself, okay, random audio artifact, move on. But after that day, something changed. I started getting this feeling that I was being watched. And I know that sounds vague and dramatic. Believe me, I wish I had a better way to explain it, but it was like, if I turned my back to the balcony, my body would tense up like something was right behind me. Not like a casual, someone staring feeling. More like my instincts were yelling, don't turn away. Like whatever it was waiting for me to slip. That feeling stuck around for days. Then one night, I couldn't sleep at all. I didn't even know why. I just had that awful sense that something was building up, like the air in the apartment was charged. I kept rolling over, checking my phone, staring at the ceiling, telling myself to stop being ridiculous. And then at around 2:40 in the morning, something like that, the light in the living room started flickering. Not the whole apartment, not other rooms, just that one light. The one near where I was lying down. It flickered in this uneven way, like someone was messing with a switch. And I swear, the second it started, that being watched feeling hit its peak. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I just froze there, staring at the ceiling glow pulsing on and off, trying not to panic, trying not to cry, trying not to move. And this is the part that still confuses me. I didn't know what to do, so in pure desperation I started praying. But not in the way I'd normally pray, because I'm Hindu, and at that point in my life I wasn't even the light a diya and chant type of person. I was more like spiritual in the background, but not actively religious. I don't even know why. I hadn't been watching anything about angels. I hadn't read anything. It just came out of nowhere. Like my brain reached for the strongest protector image it could find and grabbed it. So I whispered, actually begged, something like, "Please help me. Please protect me. Please get rid of whatever this is." And as soon as I did, I felt this warmth spread through my chest, like someone put a hand right over my heart, not physically, but in a way that made me feel held, safe, like something good had entered the room, quiet, steady, unshakable. And I got this strong sense, this calm certainty, that whatever had been watching me wasn't the only presence there anymore. Then, almost immediately, the light stopped flickering, just stopped, clean, like it had never happened. And even stranger, so did that awful watched feeling. It didn't fade over time. It didn't slowly ease away. It was just gone. Like a pressure release, like the room finally belonged to me again. I laid there for a long time afterward, breathing shallowly, almost scared to test it. Like if I moved the wrong way, it would come back. But it didn't. The air felt normal, quiet, mine. To this day, that's what gets me. Because I keep thinking, was it all in my head? Was I exhausted and anxious and my brain created a story? But then I think about how immediate it was. The warmth, the shift, the light stabilizing, the fear evaporating, and I don't know. I honestly don't know. And it leaves me with this question I still can't fully answer. If something out there listens, God, angels, whatever you want to call it, do they show up when someone truly needs help, no matter what religion they grew up with? We moved out of that apartment about 3 years ago. Different place, different neighborhood, different everything. And I've never felt that watched sensation again. Not once. But that night, the balcony, the audio, the flickering light, and that sudden warmth, yeah, that's still the strangest thing that's ever happened to me. And I don't think I'll ever completely forget it. So, okay, let me tell you about my friend Eli, because this has been sitting heavy on my mind. Eli's always said there's something that sticks to him. I grew up calling it an attachment, and I know that might not be the perfect word, but it's the word I've got. What makes it extra eerie is that his mom noticed weird stuff even when he was little, like toddler age. She'd catch him babbling like he was having full conversations with someone, but nobody was there. And she'd swear small things in the room would shift or make noises right when he did, like the space around him was answering back. The thing is, it didn't stay in one house. They moved a couple times, different neighborhoods, different layouts, all that, and it still showed up. Like it didn't care where he lived, as long as he was there. And it plays with voices. That's honestly the part that makes my skin crawl the most. It mimics people he trusts, his mom, his aunt, even his grandpa, like it's trying to pull his attention in a really specific way. It'll call his name from another room. It'll ask questions like, "Eli?" or "Are you awake?" in this tone that sounds almost right, but not quite. One night, it even copied the sound of his grandpa's old cane tapping down the hallway, like someone was getting up and walking around. Eli sat there listening, heart pounding, because he knew his grandpa was asleep. And when he checked, nobody. Nothing. Then there's the animal stuff. His pets react like they're seeing something moving through the house that humans can't track. Like sudden stiff posture, staring at empty corners, low growling. One of his cats usually sticks close, like a little guard, always planted near him. But recently, that same cat looked toward the doorway, froze, and then absolutely lost it. Ears flat, tail puffed, bolted out of the room like it was being chased. Eli said he's never seen it do that before. It happens at random times, but it also has this awful habit of showing up in the middle of the night, especially around 3 a.m., which just feels like it's trying to be dramatic on purpose. He told me about these knocks that would start up. 3 knocks, then a pause. Then 2 sets of that pattern, then silence. Then it would start again, like someone was testing his nerves in intervals. Not banging, not someone at the door, just measured, deliberate tapping. And then there are the physical things. He's woken up with fresh scratches he can't explain. One morning there was this thick smear of blood on his sheets, like somebody had a bad nosebleed, except he didn't have one. No blood on his face, no dried stuff in his nose, nothing. Just blood where he'd been sleeping, like it appeared there. He's heard doors slam when nobody's near them, heavy footsteps, breathing that isn't his, and sometimes this low, ugly sound, like growling, like something irritated that he's still there. It messes with his electronics too, which sounds almost silly until you're living it. Remote controls vanish and show up in places that make no sense. The TV volume changes on its own. Devices glitch, lights flicker, that sort of thing. And he'll suddenly feel sick, nauseous, shaky, like the air got too thick. Like whatever it is can lean into the room and press down on him. There was this one weird moment that's burned into his memory. His bedside clock had been unplugged, like fully unplugged, and it started going off. Not just flickering, like an alarm. And he, half panicked, half exhausted, actually said out loud, "Stop." And it stopped, immediately, like it heard him and chose to listen. His mom tried cleansing the house once, burning herbs, windows open, the whole thing. And according to her, whatever it is reacted so aggressively. Louder noises, heavier slams, this sudden oppressive feeling, that she cut it short because she felt like she'd made it worse. Now she's pushing him to talk to someone official, like a priest, someone experienced with spiritual cleansing. But Eli's skeptical because it hasn't reacted well to being kicked out before. He used to wear a little cross necklace, and during one of the worst episodes, the chain snapped and the cross broke, like it was making a point. And just today, this is what really pushed me to write it all out. His roommate gave him this bracelet. Not just jewelry, but one of those protective ones. Stones, string, the whole idea of it being blessed. Eli put it on, took a nap, and woke up with this sharp, stabbing pain in his stomach, like something punched him from the inside. He looked down, and the bracelet was ripped off his wrist, like yanked, and shattered on the floor. Here's the part that makes it feel personal. He said in the dream, right before waking up, he was arguing with an old friend who used to be really toxic, someone he hasn't talked to in years. And in real life, that same person once gave him a similar bracelet, and that one also broke the moment he walked into his home with it, like the house, or whatever's in it, rejected it. He says most of the activity clusters in the living room, like that room is a stage it likes using. And he's not feeding it attention either. He's tried staying calm. He's tried ignoring it. He's tried prayers, cleansings, protective charms, every version of don't react, don't escalate. And it still keeps happening. If anything, it's gotten worse with time. And that's the part I can't stop thinking about. This isn't a one-off scary night. This has been trailing him for basically his whole life. And it's escalating. He's tired. He wants peace. And I'm sitting here feeling useless because I only know so much. And I don't want to give him advice that makes things worse. I want him safe. I want him to sleep without waking up to knocks, or blood, or that feeling that the room is crowded when he's alone. And I don't know what this is. or what you even do when something feels like it's learned all your weak spots and keeps pressing them. So, let me tell you a few things that have happened in my life, because when I lay them all out like this, it's hard not to wonder what I'm carrying around inside me. A few years back, I had this beat-up little sedan, barely holding together, always making some new noise like it was inventing problems out of spite. I couldn't afford to keep fixing it, and I definitely couldn't afford to replace it. I remember saying, more than once, half joking, half desperate, I swear, I wish somebody would just hit this thing so insurance would finally put it out of its misery. And then, it happened. Not while I was driving either. A guy who'd been drinking slammed into it while it was parked right in front of my place. Just destroyed it. I walked outside to flashing lights and wreckage and that awful smell, and I felt this weird mix of shock and, I'm not proud to admit it, relief. The wildest part? The payout was more than I expected, like a couple thousand more than I thought the car was even worth. I remember staring at the number like, are you serious right now? That wasn't the first time I noticed something like that, though. Back when I was single, I used to do this thing, almost without thinking. If I saw a guy I thought was cute, I'd just look at him. Not a dramatic stare down, just a steady look, like I was tuning into a station. And so many times, it was like he felt it. He'd weave through a room, across a crowd, come right up and start flirting or ask for my number. It happened enough that I stopped calling it coincidence. And then there's this other pattern I hate even admitting out loud, because it makes me sound arrogant, or like I'm wishing harm on people. But I swear, when someone really does me wrong, or hurts me in a way that sinks deep, something tends to happen to them not long after. Something messy. And I'll hear about it later through someone else, like the universe is sending me a quiet little receipt. The biggest example is my ex. Let's call him Mason. Mason wasn't just a bad boyfriend. Mason was the kind of person who could turn the air in a room into a weapon. When I finally left him, it wasn't clean or calm. Of course it wasn't. I was packing my things, trying to stay focused, trying not to fall apart. And he followed me around the whole time, yelling, saying things meant to cut me open. I was crying, shaking, just trying to get my last bag and get out. And I remember turning around at the door, my hands full, my face hot from tears, and something in me just snapped into this cold, steady clarity. Like my voice didn't even belong to the panicked version of me anymore. I said something like, I want you to understand what you've done, and I want you to know I'm putting this on you. You won't be loved gently. You'll keep breaking people, or they'll break you. You're going to live inside the consequences of who you are. And every time life turns on you, I want you to remember my words and know you earned it. I didn't say it like a movie villain. I said it like a final truth, like I was carving it into stone. 2 years later, he messaged me, out of nowhere. He told me he genuinely believed I cursed him. And then he started listing everything that had happened since we split, like he was building a case. The women he dated after me? One cheated, got pregnant by someone else, and left. Another was living this double life he didn't see coming. Drugs, sex work, stealing from him, taking money and expensive stuff while he thought everything was normal. His brother got arrested and ended up depending on him for everything. His mom had a huge health scare and nearly died. Took months and months to recover. His closest friend just vanished on him, blocked him everywhere without explanation. I just felt heavy, like, oh, so it wasn't just anger. It was something else. Because that's the thing. I've noticed my energy does stuff. Not always on purpose. Sometimes I'll walk into a room already overwhelmed, and suddenly everyone's tense. Or I'll be in a really bright, good mood, and people around me start laughing more, opening up, acting softer. It's like my emotional weather leaks out and changes the temperature of everything nearby. When I was younger, it was even stranger. I used to feel spirits, like feel them the way you feel someone standing behind you when nobody's there. Sometimes it felt comforting, sometimes it scared me. As I got older, it faded, but every now and then I still get little signs, like something brushing my awareness, like a gentle nudge saying, "Pay attention." And there's this one presence I've felt for as long as I can remember. Protective, familiar, like someone quietly keeping watch. My mom had a miscarriage before I was born. She never talked about it much, not in a dramatic way, just a sad fact that lived in our family history. Years later, I went to a psychic. Let's call her Nadia, mostly out of curiosity. I didn't tell her anything personal, and she said, very calmly, "You have a spirit with you, a sister energy. She protects you. She's been with you your whole life." I swear my stomach dropped, because she couldn't have known. And it wasn't just the miscarriage. She described the exact feeling I'd had since childhood, that sense that I wasn't alone in the way people mean when they say, "You have support." More like, something unseen but steady had my back. My dreams do it too. This is another thing that makes me pause. Sometimes I'll dream something small and oddly specific, and then it happens later. Not always the same way, but close enough that I'll get that chill, that "I've already been here" feeling. Like my mind peeked ahead when it wasn't supposed to, and I can't even count how many times I've blurted out what I think someone is thinking, without meaning to. It'll just come out, like I'm hearing a thought that isn't mine, and they'll look at me like I just pulled a secret out of their pocket. It happens with friends, with strangers, with people I've barely exchanged 2 sentences with. That shocked look is always the same. I've seen a couple different psychics over the years, mostly because, honestly, I needed someone to either confirm I wasn't imagining it or tell me I was. One of them told me, "You already know you have abilities. You get them from your mom." And then she said something that stuck with me. "If you ever have a daughter, hers will be stronger than yours." And the last one, this one still makes me laugh a little because it's so surreal, told me something like, "You're written about in old stories." She implied I had some connection to Greek myth, like I was the kind of being people used to turn into legends, and that I chose to live a human life because I wanted to understand what it felt like. Now, listen, I'm not saying I took that as literal fact, but when she said it, I felt this deep calm settle in me, like my body recognized the idea before my brain could argue with it. And what's funny is, when I was a kid, I loved mythology. I was obsessed. I'd stay after class to read about gods and monsters and prophecies and all these wild, dramatic fates, like I was hungry for it. So when I look back on all of this, the car, the weird timing, the way people seem to orbit whatever I'm feeling, the dreams, the thoughts I catch, the presence that's followed me my whole life, I can't help but wonder, like, what am I? Am I just sensitive? Hyper-aware? Good at patterns? Or is it something older than that? And my mom, she always shrugs when I bring it up, like it's the most normal thing in the world. "It's in our nature," she'll say. And honestly, the older I get, the more I believe her. So, when I was a kid, I used to feel things around me that I couldn't explain. Like I could sense spirits the way you sense someone standing behind you, without seeing them. And there were a few moments that still make my skin prickle when I think about them. Little, almost playful things. A book sliding off a shelf when I walked by. A pencil rolling across the table like someone flicked it. Once, a light object, like a balled-up sock, tossed gently in my direction. Not to hurt me, just to get my attention. Like, "Hey, we see you. You feel us." I didn't talk about it much, because how do you say that out loud without sounding completely ridiculous? But I carried it around quietly, like a strange talent I didn't ask for. Then, when I was 16, something happened that changed the whole shape of it. My friend, his name was Dylan, just this bright, funny, warm person, was walking home one night after leaving his girlfriend's house. It was raining hard, the kind of rain that makes the streetlights look smeared and far away. He was 17, and he was walking along this busy road that didn't even have proper sidewalks, just a narrow shoulder and water rushing along the curb. A drunk driver in a big SUV swerved, and that was it. Dylan didn't die right away. He made it to the hospital, but not for long. And I remember the sick, unreal feeling of hearing the news, like my brain refused to accept it, like it kept trying to rewind the moment and choose a different ending. After the funeral, that's when he started showing up. Not like suddenly he's standing in my room with full lighting, nothing like that. It was more soft and close. He'd come to me in that weird space between sleep and awake, or in dreams so vivid they didn't feel like dreams at all. He'd talk to me, and it always felt like him. His energy, his way of speaking, even the little pauses he used to make when he was trying to be serious. And he kept saying things like, "Please go see my mom. Tell her I'm okay. Tell her I'm not alone. Tell her I don't want her to fall apart." He was upset, not angry, just heartbroken about how wrecked she was. He'd been raised by a single mom, and he loved her in this fiercely loyal way. It felt like he couldn't stand the thought of her hurting without him there to help. So I did it. A few of us would go visit her together, bring food, sit with her, talk about him. And at some point I'd find a quiet moment and pass along what he'd told me. But here's the part that still messes with me. A few hours later, I wouldn't be able to remember what I'd said. It wasn't like normal forgetting. It was like the memory had been wiped clean. I'd know I'd delivered the message. I'd know it mattered. But the actual words? Gone. Like they were never meant to stay with me. Like they weren't mine to hold on to. That went on for a few weeks, on and off. He'd come, he'd ask, I'd go, I'd tell her. And then the details would dissolve out of my mind like fog. When I left for college, I thought it would stop. New place, new routine, new noise. But every once in a while he'd still appear, sometimes in dreams. And sometimes, this is the part that still feels impossible to say, sometimes in the daytime, in crowded places. I'd be walking across campus or through a busy cafe, and I'd see him across the room, always at a distance, always smiling at me like we shared a private joke. And it would hit me like a slap, because daylight makes you feel safe. Daylight makes you think, that kind of thing doesn't happen right now. I'd stop dead, my heart pounding. Then I'd push through people, weaving between shoulders and backpacks, trying to get closer. He wasn't there. No trace, just strangers, just noise, just the weird feeling that I'd chased something that didn't belong to the world anymore. The last time I ever had an encounter with him was, honestly, kind of ugly. It was after a party. I was extremely drunk, like blackout drunk. My boyfriend at the time, Marco, had to carry me back to my dorm room, literally on his back, and put me to bed. He climbed in next to me and fell asleep. In the middle of the night, I woke up crying. But it was strange. I was awake, but my eyes were still closed, like my body was panicking before my brain had fully arrived. I shook Marco hard until he jolted up, and I remember blurting out, "He's here. Dylan is here. He wants to talk to me." And then I started sobbing, because I felt terrified and guilty at the same time. I told Marco, "Tell him to go away. Tell him I'm too drunk. I can't do this. He's scaring me." I didn't even fully understand what I was saying, but I meant it in that moment. I was overwhelmed and messy and not in control of myself, and suddenly this presence I used to feel comforted by felt like too much. The next morning, we were at breakfast with friends, and Marco told everyone what happened, half amused, half unsettled. And I just sat there stunned, because I hadn't seen Dylan in months. I thought those visits had ended, but apparently, they hadn't. And after that night, he never came back. Not in dreams, not in that half-sleep space, not in crowds, nothing. Sometimes I feel guilty about it, because I don't think he ever meant to scare me. I think he was young and confused and still emotionally tied to the people he loved, especially his mom. And I was, in a strange way, one of his last threads to that life. One of the last people who could feel him and hear him. And I told him to go away. I haven't had anything like that happen since. Not as clearly, not as personally. But I still get moments where I feel something nearby. Like the air shifts. Like the room has an extra heartbeat in it. And when I miss him, I miss those late-night conversations more than I want to admit. Not because it was fun, not because it was some spooky party trick, because it felt like love trying to find a way through. And now, the feeling I get is that he's moved on. Like whatever was attached to the version of him I knew, 17 years old, worried about his mom, still hanging around the edges of the world, has finally loosened. Like his spirit isn't holding that shape anymore. And I hope that means he's at peace. So this happened about 6 years ago, when I was in my final year at uni. I was living in this creaky old shared house with a few other students, and that night, I had the place completely to myself. I remember it being one of those winter evenings where it's not even that late, but somehow it's pitch black outside anyway. The rain was hammering the windows, proper downpour. Out of nowhere, I get a message from a guy I barely knew. Let's call him Elliot. Hey, weird question, kind of energy. We weren't friends, more like someone I'd chatted to a couple of times on a night out, maybe exchanged a few words at the gym. At some point, I must have mentioned I lived close by, because he said he was soaked, heading back from the gym, and asked if he could wait at mine until the rain eased up. It was unexpected, but honestly, it sounded harmless. So I said, sure, pop round, just until the weather chills out. When Elliot arrived, I was already settled in, watching a film in my room. I wasn't exactly in hosting mode, so I just told him, you can come in and watch if you want. I'm halfway through this. He sits down beside me on the edge of the bed, and for the first few minutes, it's normal. Quiet, just the TV and the rain. And then, things start feeling off. The first thing I noticed was these sudden flashes in my vision. Not like little specks or when you stand up too fast. I mean full-on, bright white bursts, like someone taking a camera flash directly in my face. My entire view would get washed out for a split second, then it would vanish. It happened a few times, maybe 3, 4 times over the rest of the film, and I kept trying to rationalize it. The room was dark, the TV was the only light source. Maybe the movie had quick, bright cuts. Maybe my eyes were just playing games. I really wanted it to be something boring. But then there was the other thing. I kept getting this intense sensation that there was a hand hovering just above my shoulder, my left shoulder, the side away from where Elliot was sitting. It was so convincing that I kept turning my head, like I was about to catch someone mid-gesture, expecting to see an arm reaching over me. Every time. Nothing. No one there. No movement. Just empty air and my own stupid heartbeat suddenly louder in my ears. Again, I did the same thing. I explained it away. It's dark. Your brain fills in gaps, shadows and flickering light, whatever. I tried to focus on the film, tried to act normal, but my body kept doing that little tense reset. Shoulders tightening, neck stiff, checking again. Eventually the film ends. By then the rain had eased off and Elliot stands up like, all right, I'll head out. I remember thinking, okay, that was slightly weird, but fine. Like maybe I was overtired. Maybe the stormy atmosphere got in my head. Nothing I'd be telling people about. And then, right as he's putting his shoes on near the door, he does this sudden little jolt, this sharp twitch in his shoulder. The kind you might not even mention normally. But for whatever reason, I did. I said something like, "You all right? What was that?" And without even looking up, still calm, still tying his laces. Elliot goes, super casually, "Oh yeah, that happens because there's something that follows me. Like a demon, basically. Whenever it touches my shoulder, I twitch." Just like that. Like he was explaining a stiff neck. I swear my whole body went cold. I just stood there, completely stuck, because my brain immediately replayed the entire evening. Those white flashes, that constant feeling of something hovering over my shoulder. But no, the weird stuff happened first. Then he said that. I don't even remember what I replied. Something embarrassingly neutral like, "Right, okay." Like I was trying to be polite to a conversation about the weather. And then he finished his shoes, stood up, said goodbye, and left into the night like he hadn't just dropped a nuclear bomb into my living room. I didn't message him again after that. I was rattled for days, checking over my shoulder in the mirror, sleeping with the hall light on, feeling silly about it, then feeling not silly the second the house went quiet. And here's the thing, nothing ever happened again. No more flashes, no more hovering hand sensation, nothing that I could point to and say, "Yep, confirmed." I'm still not someone who goes around insisting the supernatural is real. But that night, that was the closest I've ever come to genuinely questioning everything for a minute. Because I still can't explain how my body seemed to react to something I hadn't even been told about yet. I don't even know where to start with this, so I'll just start where it really began for me. My cousin Marisol has lived in this old place for years, and it's always had this on and off energy. You know how some houses just feel like they're holding their breath? It's like that. And every so often, it ramps up, then it fades, like it's deciding whether it wants to be noticed. The first time I ever experienced something there, it was a few years ago. Marisol was getting ready for work, and I was lying down in the guest room half awake, half not, just resting. The house was quiet in that morning way, like you can hear the hum of the fridge and your own breathing. And then, out of nowhere, we hear a little kid's voice in the living room. Not a whisper, not a creak that sounded like words. A voice. Like a child, probably 5 or 6, saying just a few words, maybe a short sentence, like someone talking to themselves. Clear enough that it snapped both of us into full attention. Marisol slowly steps out of her bedroom, and I step out from the other side of the hallway, and we meet in the middle like we're in some movie. We just stare at each other, wide-eyed, and at the same time we go, "Did you hear that?" We were the only 2 people in the house. No TV on, no neighbors inside, no kids, nothing. And I'm telling you, the air felt different after that, like the house realized we heard it. Then about a year later, I'm back over there again. This time it's evening, and we leave her bedroom to grab water from the kitchen, just for a minute. We come back, and we both stop in the doorway so hard it's like our bodies hit an invisible wall. Her dresser drawer, this heavy, old, solid wood thing, like something you'd see in a 1950s or 60s catalog, had been yanked open so hard that the drawer wasn't just out. The whole thing had broken. The rails were messed up, one hinge was snapped, and the front corner of the drawer was cracked like someone had forced it with pure anger. And the weirdest part? It wasn't like it had slowly fallen apart over time. It looked fresh, violent, like someone tried to rip it out in one go. There was no one else in the room, no pets, no open windows, nothing that would explain that kind of force. I remember just standing there with my mouth open, thinking, how would a person even do that without bracing themselves? It was the kind of strength that makes your brain short-circuit because it doesn't fit reality. Marisol told me she'd had so many other things happen that she'd stopped even trying to prove it to people. She's felt cold rushes go straight through her body like someone walked through her. She's seen little glowing specks, like orbs, show up in videos and sometimes with her own eyes, floating in a way that didn't look like dust. She's watched small objects tip over when nothing touched them. One time she swore the tiny drawer of her jewelry box slid out on its own and clattered onto the floor like it had been flicked. And then there are the sounds, those ones that really get under your skin. Not little settling noises. I mean sudden, sharp crashes like something heavy fell. Except you go looking and nothing has moved. No explanation, just a loud, aggressive bang out of nowhere, like the house is trying to startle you on purpose. For a while, though, things actually calmed down. The last year or so has been quieter, which honestly felt like a relief. Like maybe whatever it was had finally gotten bored. But now my uncle, Darren, is the one getting worn down. He's always been a skeptic, like the kind of guy who rolls his eyes and goes, "It's pipes, it's wiring, it's your imagination." So when he started talking about this, I didn't take it seriously at first. And here's the part that makes it feel creepy. He says the sound moves. Like it'll happen, and it seems like it's coming from the corner near the hallway. Then later it sounds like it's by the kitchen. Then it's behind him. Not consistent. Not one fixed spot. He described it like it's circling him, which, okay, sounds dramatic. But I heard a short recording he took, and it really is this thin, sharp tone that doesn't sound like any normal house beep. It's been happening for about 2 months now, and he's starting to crack a little. Not like he thinks he's in danger, more like it's just slowly making him feel unsettled in his own home. Like he can't relax because he's waiting for the next set of 3. And the fact that it seems to follow him room to room, that's the part that's getting to him. So yeah, that's where we're at. If you've ever dealt with something like that, whether you think it's paranormal or some weird electrical quirk, what would you tell someone to do next? Because I'd love to pass along anything helpful to Darren. At this point, I don't even care what the explanation is. I just want him to stop feeling like the house is playing games with him. So, this story goes back to when I was about 8 years old, living in a smaller house in the west side of Mesa, Arizona. It wasn't fancy or anything, just me, my mom, and my little sister, and we were making it work. And honestly, up until a certain point, I didn't feel like anything was off in that place. It just felt like home. But then my older sister, Marisol, moved in with her 3 kids for a while. We had this extra room, and she needed somewhere to land, so my mom made it happen. The house got louder, more crowded, more alive. And that's when the weird stuff started. At first, it was little things that didn't make sense unless you really sat with them. Like the old basketball in the backyard. Out of nowhere, you'd hear it bouncing by itself, like someone was dribbling it and steady. Or you'd hear a hard thump against the back wall, like it had been thrown. And sometimes, no joke, you'd hear footsteps above us, like someone running across the roof, back and forth, quick like they were playing a game up there. We'd all freeze and look at each other like, "Did you hear that?" But no one wanted to be the one to say it out loud. Then one night, the whole house snapped awake to a scream. It came from Marisol's room. She and the kids were all sleeping in there together. My mom shot out of bed, and I ran right behind her, my heart going crazy. We burst into the room thinking something horrible happened. And there's my nephew, Eli, who was about 3 at the time, standing by the closet door, shaking, crying like he'd seen something he couldn't explain. And then he does something that made my stomach drop. He pulls the closet door shut and tries to lock himself inside. My mom grabbed him right away, trying to calm him down, asking him what he was doing, why he was hiding. And Eli, still crying, still terrified, goes, "I'm talking to the little boy. He wants me to come in." I remember the air in that room feeling thick, like it suddenly got colder. Because at that age, kids can imagine a lot. But the way he said it wasn't playful. It was serious. Then he wipes his face and says something else. Something that felt so specific it didn't sound made up at all. He goes, "He's on the roof." My mom stared at him like, "What did you just say?" And Eli nods again and points upward, insisting, "He's on the roof. You'll find him up there." So the next morning, my mom decides we're checking, because what else do you do when a little kid says something like that and you've been hearing running up there for weeks? And since I was small and light, they lifted me up to climb onto the roof from the back patio. I remember my hands scraping the rough edge, the sun already warming the shingles, and me trying to act brave even though I was scared. I get up there, and I'm looking around, expecting, I don't know, anything. But there's no kid, no footprints, no sign of anyone, just one single shoe. A tiny shoe sitting near the edge like it had been left there on purpose. And it was bright red, like one of those little kids' character shoes, except in my version, it wasn't Lightning McQueen. It was a red Spider-Man sneaker. Small, worn, definitely a child's. It looked like it belonged to someone younger than me, maybe 5 or 6. I picked it up and just stared at it for a second, confused, because how does a kid's shoe end up on a roof when nobody's been up there? I tossed it down carefully to my mom, and she caught it and looked at it. And then she got quiet. And what bothered me most was how nobody really said much after that. Like everyone's brain just refused to accept it. My sister turned away. My mom held the shoe for a second, then set it down like it was too heavy to keep holding. A few days later, the landlord and her husband come over. They're walking through the house, checking the problems, doing that polite small talk adults do. And then my mom, just straight up, no warm-up, asks them, "Has anyone ever died in this house?" The landlord blinks like she didn't hear her right. "Why would you ask that?" So my mom tells them, everything. The noises, the running on the roof, the ball sounds in the backyard. And she tells them about Eli crying, locking himself in the closet, saying he was talking to a little boy. And I'll never forget what happened next. The landlord and her husband look at each other, and you can literally see their faces change. Like the question hit a nerve they didn't expect to be touched. They both look down, and after a moment, the husband quietly says something like, "We did have a son," and the landlord nods, eyes glossy. She says he was very sick, fighting something for a long time, and he passed away in that house. The room got so still. My mom went and grabbed the red Spider-Man shoe and showed it to them, and the landlord's hand flew to her mouth. Her husband just stared at it like it wasn't real. She whispered that it looked like their son's. And I'm telling you, the emotion in that moment was so heavy it felt like it sat on my chest. Because suddenly it wasn't a ghost story anymore. It felt like grief had been living with us, quietly, this whole time. They asked if they could take the shoe. My mom handed it over respectfully, like returning something that never should have been lost. And after that day, everything stopped. No more footsteps on the roof. No more strange backyard sounds. No more weird little moments that made your skin prickle. It was like, once that shoe made it back to the people it belonged to, whatever was hanging around finally let go. And I know how it sounds. I do. But when you live through something like that, when you see adults go pale because you accidentally stumbled into the truth, it stays with you. Not because it was scary, but because it was sad. And somehow, in the end, it felt like the only thing that kid wanted was to be found. Okay, so I'm going to tell you something I don't usually share with people unless I really trust them, because it sounds like the kind of thing you'd roll your eyes at. But it happened, and I've carried it around ever since. So, I'm 31 now, and since I was little, weird stuff has happened around me. Nothing dramatic every day, not like a horror movie, just little things. Objects shifting when they shouldn't, That prickly feeling that someone's standing behind you when you know you're alone. When I was a kid, but over time, I kind of learned to live around it. Like, okay, that's my life. Cool. But about 9 years ago, I had one experience that felt different, heavier. Like something wasn't just there, but aimed at me. And I tried telling people, but nobody really believed me. Honestly, not even my partner, Luca, and we've been together forever, more than a decade. He'd listen, sure, but you could tell he thought I was just spooking myself. Then, in late 2019, Luca and I went on holiday in northern Spain. We rented this quiet place out in the countryside, an old farm property, but we had the whole thing to ourselves. One day we decided to go hiking, and it was gorgeous. Big open sky, tall grass, that kind of clean, bright air that makes you feel like you can breathe again. We reached this wide plateau, and right in the middle, like someone had planted it there on purpose, was this huge stone monument. Not exactly a cross, but close enough to give me that same weird feeling. I'm not religious. It's not about faith for me. It's more like certain symbols hit something in my chest that I can't explain. Like an old bruise you forgot you had. We kept going, and that's when we saw the house. It didn't look ruined exactly, but all the windows were sealed shut. Not boarded up, chained. Like chains looped across the frames, locks hanging there, metal catching the light. It should have scared me more than it did, but what I felt wasn't panic at first. It was sadness. That's the only word I can use. The place felt like it was holding its breath, like it was embarrassed to exist. Even Luca went quiet, and that's saying something because he jokes through everything. I told him, "I don't feel good here. Can we go?" And right as I said that, right as we turned away, we heard music. Not from a phone, not from a car, not from a nearby house, because there wasn't one. It was this thin, drifting melody, like a music box, except it didn't feel sweet. It felt wrong, like it didn't belong in the daylight, like it was being played to remind someone of something. And I remember thinking, very clearly, something terrible happened in that house. We started walking back toward the trailhead, toward the car, and I was trying to shake it off. Like, okay, creepy house, weird sound. Let's be normal. Let's go eat dinner. I kept telling myself that. Then I saw her. A woman, blonde hair pulled back, pale coat, hands clasped in front of her like she was praying or trying to hold herself together. She was walking oddly, not limping exactly, but stiff, like her joints didn't agree on how to move. And I know how this sounds, but the second I saw her, even from far away, my stomach dropped. It wasn't, she looked strange. It was a full-body animal certainty, danger. Luca laughed at first. Just a little nervous chuckle like, "What, her? She's just walking." But even as he said it, he changed. His shoulders tightened. His voice flattened out. He started watching her the way you watch something unpredictable, and right as we passed, she turned her head toward me. I saw her face for maybe a second. It was grayish purple, like bruised skin. Her expression wasn't blank, it was furious, upset, like someone trapped in pain for too long and it had curdled into rage. The image that popped into my head was awful, like seeing someone who'd been locked away, forgotten, and they were still screaming inside even if their mouth was closed. Luca looked at her too, fully, and he didn't laugh after that. Not once. We practically ran to the car, and when we got there, she was gone. Just gone. Like she'd never been on the path at all. Then, as Luca backed the car up, she appeared again, just for a flash, in the rearview mirror. And then she disappeared again. I remember Luca gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles went white. And later he said, really quietly, I never want to see something like that again. Back at the rental, I tried to look up the area, tried to figure out if the house had a history. Fire, murders, anything. But it was like it didn't exist on paper. No articles, no official records I could find. Just nothing. But I couldn't shake this feeling, this awful pity, that whoever that woman was, something had been done to her. Like she hadn't just died, like she'd suffered. And that's where most stories would end, right? Like, creepy encounter, we left, the end. No. That night, while we were getting ready for dinner, we started hearing noises. Little knocks, soft thumps, like something shifting in the building. And we were alone. No neighbors on the other side of the wall, no upstairs footsteps. The whole place was ours. I remember joking, trying to keep it light, like, well, tonight's gonna be fun, with that shaky laugh you do when you're trying not to cry. Around 1:45 a.m., I woke up to the sound of the doorknob turning. Not a random click. Turning. Rattling. Like someone was testing it over and over. Then, this is the part that still makes my skin go tight. Even though the door stayed closed, it sounded like someone kicked it, like a hard impact. Footsteps, in the kitchen, walking fast, back and forth, like someone pacing with purpose. Then the sounds moved toward the veranda, and then into the hallway, and then into the rooms. I lay there frozen, staring into the dark, and I felt it. That presence. The same heavy, pointed feeling from years earlier. Not curious, not neutral. Malicious. And then it got closer. Close enough that I felt like it was standing near the bedroom door, watching me. You know that feeling when you can't see something but your body is screaming that it's right there? Like every hair is trying to stand up and point at it? A few minutes later, it felt like something ran toward the bed. Not footsteps, more like a pressure change, like the air itself surged. And then I sensed it right beside me, near my head, like it was leaning over me, like it was about to climb on top of me. I couldn't move. I couldn't even get my voice to work. I was trapped inside my own body, trying to scream through wet cement. And then Luca woke up. He started shouting, like angry shouting, not confused, like he was fighting something he couldn't see. And the second he did, everything stopped. The sounds, the pressure, the feeling, like someone flipped a switch. I blinked, and it was morning light logic again, and my brain tried to do that thing where it tells you it was a dream. But later, Luca told me what he experienced. So it wasn't just sleep paralysis. It wasn't just my imagination. We left that place and never went back. And for a long time, I didn't have anything that dark happen again. I actually let myself believe maybe it was over. But here's the thing. For the last couple of years, Luca and I have lived in a newer apartment. Deliberately not a house, not a garden, not anything isolated. We thought, okay, walls, neighbors, normal life, safer. And recently, in our bedroom, we've been hearing sounds from the same spot, over and over. Knocks. The faint slide of something like a drawer shifting. Little clicks that don't match the building settling. It happens in summer and winter, so it's not heat or pipes or expansion. The furniture isn't old. There's no good reason for it. And sometimes, I get this cold feeling in the room that doesn't make sense. Like the air around the bed is 10 degrees colder than the rest of the apartment. One morning, not long ago, I woke up after a brutal night of sleep. I'd had this vivid, horrible dream about my grandmother who passed away. And Luca's grandmother was there too, which made it even stranger. The dream felt heavy, like it clung to me even after my eyes opened. And Luca looked wrecked. He told me he hadn't slept. He'd heard the noises. He was scared. And he said the room felt freezing, unnaturally freezing. He said, very quietly, "It felt like someone was right next to me." So, yeah, I'm not saying I have answers. I'm not saying I know what any of it is. I just know what it felt like. And I know the difference between a normal, creepy moment and something that makes your body react like it's fighting for its life. And I'm really, really hoping whatever that was doesn't decide to get close again. Hey, so I've been sitting with this for a while, and I'm finally just going to say it out loud the way it happened, because keeping it in my head is making it heavier. It was New Year's Day, and I swear it started off with the kind of weird little thing you'd normally laugh about later. Except it didn't stop. I was in my kitchen, half awake, and a pop can, like an empty one I thought I'd tossed, suddenly jumped when I bumped the counter. It didn't just fall. It whipped up and shot right in front of my face and scraped the side of my neck. Close enough that I stood there with my fingers pressed to my skin thinking, that was way too close. You know that cold wave of what if that hits your chest? That. And then, later that morning, I went into my bedroom, already uneasy, and I got this awful sense that something was there. Not like a shadow from a curtain, like a presence. I even remember staring at this one spot near the foot of the bed, near the mirror, because something about that exact area felt wrong. My eyes kept snapping back to it like my body was noticing something my brain couldn't name. Around the same time, I was on FaceTime with my grandma, Nana Lydia, and my sister Marin was sitting beside her. I was trying to sound casual, like, haha, this is creepy, but whatever, while showing them these strange marks on the wall. They looked like claw marks. I know how that sounds. But they were long, angled scratches, and I hadn't dragged furniture there or hung anything up. I was literally panning the camera like, look, tell me I'm not losing it. And then, this is the part that still makes my stomach flip. I was on the bed, phone in my hand, and it felt like my body got yanked. Not tripped, not startled, pulled. Like someone grabbed me by the middle and hauled me sideways. I went flying off the mattress and hit the floor hard, shin first, right on that same spot I'd been staring at earlier. The pain was immediate, sharp, deep, like it rang through the bone. My phone launched out of my hand too, like I couldn't even hold on to it. And I just lay there for a second with my heart slamming, trying to make sense of how fast it happened. I ended the call not long after because I was rattled, and I told myself I was just overtired, that it was a fluke, that my brain was being dramatic. But I couldn't shake the fear. I didn't even want to sleep in my bedroom after that. I dragged a blanket to the living room and slept on the couch instead, with the lights on, like a kid. The thing is, there's no bathroom on the main floor, so at some point in the night, when my stomach woke me up, I had to run upstairs anyway, right past the bedroom, right past the place I didn't want to be. And that's when the last incident hit. Only it wasn't spooky, it was physical, and it was terrifying in a totally different way. I got hit with sudden, brutal diarrhea, like my whole body turned inside out in minutes. I hadn't really eaten properly the day before. My appetite's been off because of my stimulant medication, so it wasn't even like I had anything in me to lose, but my body was dumping everything anyway. I started sweating through my clothes fast, the kind of sweat that feels cold and hot at the same time. My mouth went dry. My hands got weak. I remember sitting there thinking, I'm going to pass out. And then it got worse, because when I tried to stand, my legs didn't feel like they belonged to me. I couldn't even reach for my phone. I honestly thought, this is it. I'm alone in this house and I'm going to die on the bathroom floor. And then, I blacked out. The next day, I was still shaky and bruised, and in that awful, foggy aftermath where everything feels unreal. I talked to Marin again, and she told me something that made my skin prickle. She said from her end of the FaceTime call, it didn't look like I fell. She said it looked like I got abruptly pulled because of how suddenly my arm jerked and how the phone just flew like it had been knocked out of my hand. So then I did what you do when you're scared and you don't know what else to do. I started digging. And while I was looking things up, this memory surfaced that I hadn't thought about in years. It came back like a flash, and then it just sat there, heavy and undeniable. I bought this house in late summer of 2022. I remember being excited and stressed and running around fixing little things before I fully moved in. Then that fall, I got into a terrible rear-end collision on my way back from the property. My car was totaled. I got a traumatic brain injury. I didn't even realize how bad it was at first. I lost consciousness later that day. And after that, pieces of my memory from that time got scrambled. Some of it is still missing. Some of it still feels like it happened to someone else. But here's the memory that came back. Before that crash, I had been in the bedroom, near the mirror, and I saw a figure at about waist height in the reflection, right in that same area where I'd gotten hurt on New Year's Day. And in that moment, back then, my body had reacted before my brain did. I remember this surge of panic, like my instincts were screaming at me to get out. I wasn't just leaving the house that day in 2022. I was fleeing it. So once that clicked, I pulled the property registration record. Here we call it the parcel register. And I started piecing together the history. I found that one of the original owners died around the turn of the year back in the early 1990s, based on the timing of how the paperwork changed. And a neighbor told me he was in his 30s when it happened. After that, his spouse stayed in the home for decades, until the late 2010s, and then it changed hands again before I bought it. And I know, houses have histories. People live and die. That's normal. But the timing, New Year's, the bedroom, the mirror, the figure, the way I keep getting hurt. My brain keeps trying to line it up like it's a story with a point. I live alone. I'm 28. I work a demanding job that already drains the life out of me. And since I found all this out, my sleep has been wrecked. I don't have family in town. When I asked my parents for help staging the place because I want to sell it and get out, they basically said no. Just no. And that hurt almost as much as everything else. So I've been trying to do it myself. Cleaning, sorting, making it look like a normal, happy house someone would want. But the more I try, the more things happen. I slip. I fall. I slam my elbows or twist my legs. I end up with fresh bruises and that same dread sitting in my throat. I even tried burning sage. Like, I'm not even someone who does that, but I was desperate. And I sprinkled salt at the edges of the rooms like people suggest. And if anything, it felt like it made the atmosphere worse. Like whatever is in here didn't calm down. It got irritated. And there's this other strange thing too. Time feels slippery in here. I'll swear I've been in the bedroom for 10 minutes and it's suddenly an hour. Or I'll go to fold laundry and look up and the afternoon is gone. It messes with my head. It makes me feel like I can't trust myself. So that's where I'm at. I'm scared. I'm exhausted. I don't want to die in this house, but I also don't have the kind of support system where I can just snap my fingers and move out and recover from all these injuries without help. Because I'm trying so hard to be rational. I really am. But it's getting harder to pretend this is just bad luck. So, I'm going to tell you this the way my mom told it to me, because I was just a tiny baby when it happened, barely a few months old, so everything I know is from her memory. It was a little over 20 years ago, back when my parents were living in the same old house my mom grew up in. The kind of house that holds on to family history, you know? My mom's dad, my grandpa, had passed away years before I was born. I never got to meet him, even though I ended up being named after him. And for a long time, that was just a bittersweet fact, until the house started doing this thing. One afternoon, my dad, Elliot, was out of town for work. It was just my mom, Marissa, and me. I was maybe 4 months old, sleeping in my crib upstairs. My mom had laid down in the nursery too, just trying to steal a nap when the baby naps, because you do what you can. And then she heard it. The door that led in from the garage opened. Not a creak, not the house settling, an actual open. And right after that, clear footsteps. Like someone had walked into the kitchen with purpose, like they belonged there. My mom said her whole body went cold. She sat straight up, scooped me out of the crib without even thinking, and just stood there listening, waiting for another sound, a voice, anything. But the house went quiet again. So she did the only thing she could think to do. She ran. She bolted down the stairs, holding me tight, and rushed straight out the front door. Once she was outside, heart pounding, she circled the house checking everything. The windows, the locks, the doors. She even went to the garage door, and it was locked, deadbolted. No sign anyone had come in at all. At first, she tried to talk herself out of it. Maybe she dreamed it. Maybe the sound traveled weirdly in that house, but over the next several weeks, it happened again, and again. Same pattern, the garage door sound, then footsteps through the kitchen. Sometimes down the hallway. Once she swore she heard the soft weight of someone settling into the recliner in the living room, like that old chair cushion giving in under a familiar body. And then there were the nursery sounds. Both my mom and dad would hear walking in my room when I was asleep. Not just a creak in the floor, actual pacing, like someone moving from one side of the nursery to the other. And the unsettling part was, they'd be in the kitchen, or the bedroom, or downstairs together. They'd go check, expecting maybe the other parent was up there, but no one would be in the room. Just me, sound asleep. Eventually there was one day, my mom never forgot this, when she heard that recliner moment again, and it hit her so hard she had to sit down. Because she realized the sounds weren't random. They were familiar. They matched her dad's routine. Apparently, when he was alive, he came home the same way every day, through the garage, a quick pause in the kitchen to greet her mom, then down the hallway to his recliner for the evening news. My mom said it was like hearing an old habit replayed, step by step, like the house remembered it. The only person who actually saw anything was a babysitter, Kendra, who watched me one night while my parents were out. Kendra told them she went upstairs to check on me, and as she reached the top of the stairs, she clearly saw part of someone. Just a leg, jeans, a shoe, rounding the corner away from the nursery and heading down the hallway. Not a shadow, not a blur, a person, or at least enough of one to make her stomach drop. She ran after them, obviously, because who wouldn't? And the hallway was empty. No doors opening, no footsteps fading, just nothing. So she asked a priest to come by and bless the home. Nothing dramatic, nothing movie-like, just a calm, respectful blessing. And my mom, Marissa, said she spoke out loud too, kind of gently, like she was talking to her dad right in the room. She told him it was okay, that she loved him, that he didn't need to stay, that it was time to rest. And after that, it stopped. The garage sound stopped. The hallway footsteps stopped. The nursery pacing stopped. Like someone finally listened and let go. My mom was the youngest in her family, and I was her first baby. And our family has always believed, quietly, without making it into some big scary thing, that it was just my grandpa coming back one last time, checking on his daughter, seeing the baby who carried his name, making sure we were okay. And honestly, when my mom tells it, it doesn't feel like a horror story. It feels like a goodbye. So, I should probably start by saying I'm from Brazil, and where I grew up, it's pretty normal to hear about Afro-Brazilian spiritual traditions. People talking about guides, spirits, energies, all of that. Even if you're not deeply involved, you're around it. You learn what people believe, what they do to protect themselves, what they say not to do. And because of that, I've had moments that were weird, unsettling, but usually manageable. Usually I can stay calm and tell myself, all right, breathe, don't feed it, don't panic. But there were two specific times, when I didn't feel in control at all. The first one happened on a night when I really wasn't okay. Like emotionally, I was a mess. I'd been pushing through life on autopilot, and I remember leaving the gym late, almost midnight, walking home alone with my headphones in, music up loud like I could drown out my own thoughts. The song was Numb by Linkin Park. I know that sounds dramatic, but I swear, even now, whenever it comes on, my stomach tightens. My brain just drops right back into that night. Anyway, my route home passed by this old cemetery. Not huge, but big enough that it always felt quiet in the wrong way. The kind of quiet that makes your footsteps sound too loud. And as I got closer, I started feeling it. That sensation like someone is behind you. At first I brushed it off. In my city, your brain automatically goes to practical fear, you know? Like, don't get robbed, don't be stupid, keep walking. But this wasn't just nerves. This felt thick, like the air got heavier, like something was pressing down on my shoulders and chest. It didn't feel like a person following me. It felt like presence, like something had noticed me and decided I belonged to it for the next few minutes. Then I reached the street right in front of the cemetery gates, and my body just flipped into survival mode. You know that feeling where you don't even decide to be afraid? Your body decides for you? That's what happened. Because the being followed feeling changed. It wasn't behind me at a distance anymore. It felt like it was moving fast, like it was running toward me. And the pressure got so intense it felt suffocating, like I couldn't get a full breath. So I ran. And I know, afterwards, I thought the same thing. Why did you run? Because if it's something spiritual, running doesn't help. And if it's a person, you might make yourself look like an easy target. But I wasn't thinking. I was pure panic. I ran hard, praying under my breath, begging to see anyone. A neighbor, a couple, a car, anything. Just something normal to snap the moment in half. The worst part was the sense that it reacted to me running. Like the second I acknowledged it, it got excited. Like, oh, you feel me. And it pressed in even harder, like it was right on my back. I got home shaking, hands clumsy, heart slamming, like I'd sprinted a mile. I didn't even turn on all the lights at first. I just went straight into my little, I'm not playing with this, routine. I lit candles, I prayed, I spoke out loud like I was setting rules in my own home. And as I did that, this impression settled in me. Not a voice exactly, more like a sudden knowing. It felt feminine, like it was a woman, or at least something carrying that energy. A presence that had latched onto me on that walk and followed me right up to my door like it had permission. I never found out what it wanted. I still don't know, but I know what it felt like. Not curiosity, not harmless. It felt hungry, heavy, possessive, and that alone was enough to scare me more than anything. The second time was different. It happened indoors, in a place that was supposed to be safe, and I remember smiling at first, because it was kind of comforting. But then I said something that I immediately regretted. I told him, gently, just be careful. Sometimes things pretend to be good. Sometimes they act helpful just to drain you, or attach to you. The second those words left my mouth, immediately, the light bulb in my room exploded. Not flickered, not burned out, exploded. A sharp pop and that hot, bitter smell, like scorched dust and electricity. We both went quiet. I stood up to go check it, and I walked to my bedroom door like I was on rails. And then I got there and I just stopped. I couldn't cross the threshold. It was like my body locked up, like my muscles refused to cooperate. And the fear wasn't just, I'm scared. It was primal. Like every instinct in me was screaming, do not go in there. I tried to force myself, like, come on, it's your room. It's literally your room. But the closer I leaned, the worse it got. Like stepping forward would be stepping into something that wanted me. So I backed up, breathing fast, and I did the only thing I could think of. I lit candles again. I prayed again. I spoke firmly, like I was pushing something out with my words. And then the temperature dropped. I don't mean it felt spooky. I mean it got icy. The hallway felt normal, but inside that room, it was like someone had opened a freezer. My skin prickled. I had goosebumps all over my arms. And the dread. It was so thick it felt like I was swallowing it. After that night, I avoided my room for a while. Not forever, but long enough that it messed with my daily life. I'd sleep on the couch. I'd change clothes in the hallway. I'd do anything to minimize being in there alone. Because once your body reacts like that, once it refuses to move, you start trusting that instinct more than logic. So yeah, those are the 2 times I couldn't handle myself. And I know some people will hear this and think it's anxiety or stress or coincidence. I'm not even here to argue with anyone. I'm just telling you what it felt like. One night, something followed me past a cemetery like it had chosen me. And another night, something answered me the moment I warned someone out loud. And both times, the scariest part wasn't what I saw, because I didn't really see anything. It was how certain my body was that I was not alone. So this happened. I want to say around 6 or 7 years ago now. One of those sticky, bright summer afternoons where everything feels easy. My girlfriend at the time, Maya, our friend Eli, and I were just out walking near our place. There was this paved footpath we took a lot. On our right, this big open dog park, wide grass, a couple people tossing tennis balls, the whole wholesome scene. On our left, a thin stretch of trees that gave just enough shade to make it feel like a little tunnel for a minute. It was broad daylight, like the kind where you can see every detail. And our mood was great. We were talking about nothing important, laughing, enjoying that we should do this more often feeling. And then, this is the part where my stomach still tightens a little, even thinking about it. I glanced up the path, kind of absent-mindedly, and I saw something that didn't fit the picture. Just wrong in a quiet way. So I did that casual thing, trying not to sound dramatic, and I went, hey, do you guys see that? Like I was joking. Like it was going to be a weird sign or someone wearing something ridiculous. Both of them looked, and we all stopped walking at the exact same time. Up ahead, maybe like 30 or 40 yards away, there was this figure. Human-sized, technically, but the shape was all expanded. Like whatever it was wearing made it look too wide, too bulky, too solid. It was covered head to toe in what looked like thick, dark fabric, almost like heavy brown or black robes. No arms, no legs, no normal outline, just a big, uneven mass. And then the face, if you can even call it that. It had this huge mask, oversized, not like a Halloween mask, more like something ceremonial, something old. The top of it rose way above where a head should be, like an extra foot or 2 of height. And it was wide, comically wide, like it stretched out on either side. The whole thing came down low, almost to where you'd expect a person's thighs or knees to be. We didn't even say what we were seeing out loud at first. That's what scares me when I think back, because the silence meant we all knew we were looking at the same thing. No one had to ask, "What is that?" We just stared. And then it moved. Except, moved isn't even the right word. It looked like it was dancing, like it was bobbing up and down, swaying side to side. This slow, rhythmic shifting like it was stepping from one foot to another, facing us the whole time. I remember thinking, for a split second, is this some kind of performance? Like maybe someone was messing around, or filming something, or... But nothing about it felt playful. It felt deliberate. Like it knew we were there, and it was putting on a show for us specifically. We still didn't run right away. We were frozen, honestly, trying to make our brains accept what our eyes were insisting on. And then it started coming toward us, still dancing, still doing that slow sway step like it was taking its time. Only, here's the part that flipped a switch in my body. Even though the motions were slow, it was covering distance fast, like sprint fast. Like the path between us was shrinking at an impossible rate that didn't match the movement at all. It looked like it should have been creeping forward, but it was closing in like something charging. That's when fear finally hit us all at once. Pure, instinctive panic. No conversation. No, should we go? Just the three of us turning and running like our lives depended on it. We didn't stop until we got back to our apartment. We slammed the door, locked it, and just stood there bent over, gasping, wide-eyed, trying to talk but not getting full sentences out. And the whole time, the only thing I could think was, it was daytime. We were sober. We all saw it, together. The same thing. To this day, I don't know what it was. I don't even know what explanation would make sense. But I do know this. That was the most terrified I've ever been in my life. Okay, so I heard something today that has been sitting in my chest like a stone, and I can't seem to shake it. I'm 25, and I've always been the kind of person who feels things before I can explain them. I'm not out here claiming I'm a psychic or anything, but my whole life, weird stuff has followed me. I'll walk into a place and immediately feel the tone of it. Sometimes I'll hear little things, or catch movement that doesn't make sense. At home, we've had this ongoing, I don't even know what to call it, like a mimic energy. The kind where you swear you heard your name or someone's footsteps, and then you realize you're alone. So, fast forward to this school year. I'm teaching 3rd grade at a Catholic elementary school in a rougher part of town. High stress, tough behaviors, the kind of environment where your shoulders are permanently up around your ears. And I'll be honest, the building has always felt off. Not evil exactly, just heavy, charged. There are the usual stories people whisper, like this old rumor that a sister passed away on the property decades ago, back in like the 1940s or 50s. Someone eventually tells me my classroom used to be part of the old sleeping quarters for the nuns, which is unsettling, sure, but that's not even what got me. Because I've already had little things happen in my room. A chair shifting when no one's near it, a water bottle tipping over like it got flicked. Even the class's little seasonal mascot, like one of those classroom dolls, ending up in a totally different spot when I know I put it away. And normally, I'd chalk it up to the kids messing around, or my own exhaustion, or the building settling. These students are intense. Like, I've been teaching since 2017, and I have never had a group that pushed adults to the edge like this one. I've seen teachers cry. I've cried. You start to wonder if you're failing, or if you're losing your patience, or if you're just not built for it. But then I heard this story about what happened last year, before I ever worked here, and it made everything feel not normal. So this year, the other 3rd grade teacher was out on maternity leave, and the long-term sub, let's call her Ms. Maribel, came in to cover. 2 weeks. That's all it took. She had what everyone keeps describing as a complete break from reality. Not just overwhelmed, not just stressed. Like, she lost track of time, lost track of where she was. She started talking to things that weren't there. And the last day she was in the building, I walked past her room and she was pacing, jittery, having this full-on conversation with the mirror. Like it was responding to her. She had her kids packed up to go home. In the middle of the day. Like hours early. She couldn't process what time it was. At one point, she took them toward the cafeteria at the wrong time, and then, this part makes my stomach twist. She just left them there. Like she forgot what she was doing halfway through. Admin had to step in. She ended up hospitalized for more than a week. Everyone tried to explain it like, oh, stress, burnout, it happens. But I keep thinking, I've seen burnout. This felt like something else. Now here's the part that made my skin go cold. The staff was talking about last year, the year before I arrived. At that time, I didn't work at this school. I wasn't even in the same district. I didn't know a single person there. There was a classroom support staff member, let's call him Mr. Darius, who worked with the younger grades. One day, in the middle of the year, he had what they described as a manic, psychotic episode. But the weird part is how it started. He walked into a first grade room and insisted he needed to find third grade because he had to talk to a teacher named Ms. Rowan. Ms. Rowan, but he kept insisting. No, not Ms. Klein. Miss Rowan. He was getting more agitated by the second, like he'd been given a mission and people were blocking him from completing it. So they walk him to the third grade room because he's claiming he can't find it. And when he gets there, he looks around like he's confused and offended at the same time. And he goes, "This isn't her room. This isn't Miss Rowan." Then he looks at the third grade teacher, Miss Klein, and says something like, "That's not her. That's not who I'm supposed to talk to." And the way they told it, it wasn't like he was randomly guessing. He spoke like he knew what this teacher looked like he had a picture in his mind that didn't match the person standing in front of him, like he had an expectation of what the classroom looked like, and this wasn't it. But here's the thing that's messing me up. Ms. Rowan was me. Not literally my name, obviously. I'm not using my real name here. But the way the staff told it, the description matched me. The role, the room, the exact placement. Like he was looking for the third grade teacher who didn't work there yet. And there was no other person he could have meant. No similar name, no substitute, no past staff member. He spiraled hard after that. He became physical, started screaming, had to be restrained, and at one point locked himself in a room with a student. He was terminated and hospitalized. So now I'm sitting here with this pattern. 1 year, a support staff member breaks from reality and is desperate to find a third grade teacher who doesn't exist yet, but insists he recognizes her. The next year, a long-term sub has a terrifying breakdown in the same grade band. And I'm the common thread, without even being there when it started. And now I can't stop asking myself the questions I don't even want to ask out loud. Is there something in that building that pushes people over the edge? Is it just stress and coincidence, and my mind is making a story out of it because I'm already sensitive to that other layer of reality? Or is it something else? Because if I'm being totally honest with you, when I stand in my classroom some mornings before the kids arrive, there are moments where it feels like the room is waiting, like it's holding its breath, like it recognizes me. And the thought that keeps looping is, what if Mr. Darius wasn't just confused? What if he was displaced? Like he slipped somehow, mentally, spiritually, whatever, and ended up looking for someone he'd been told to find. Someone who wasn't there yet. And if that's true, why? Was it a warning? A message? Something trying to get my attention? Or something trying to lure me into paying attention? I don't feel terrified exactly, It's more like I feel shaken awake, like the universe tapped me on the shoulder, and now I can't pretend I didn't notice. And I keep going back and forth between this is trauma and stress and human brains cracking under pressure, and no, this is too specific. Because lots of people burn out, lots of people break down, but they don't usually break down while searching for a teacher who doesn't exist yet, and insisting they know her. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm not saying it's demonic, I'm not saying it's a haunting, but I am saying something about this doesn't sit right in my spirit, and I can't tell if I'm being warned or being watched. So, this happened to me a little over 2 years ago, and back then, I'd never even heard the word mimic. I definitely didn't have any spooky explanation in my head at the time. I just knew something felt wrong, in a way I still can't fully shake. I was 20 then, and my little sister, Maya, was 16. We'd just moved around a bit. Not far, but enough that it felt like a shift. My mom and my sister were staying in one place, and I was living with my grandparents for a while to help out, mostly because my grandpa was struggling to take care of my grandma on his own. It was in the same neighborhood we grew up in, the kind of streets where you still recognize the cracked sidewalks and the trees you used to climb. And there was this park down the road, maybe a 6-minute walk if you didn't rush. A little lake, a couple benches, a playground that always squeaked. That park was basically our whole childhood. Me, Maya, our cousins, endless afternoons there. Scraped elbows, lost baseball caps, little bike wipeouts that felt like the end of the world when you're 9. The kind of place where you've yelled someone's name 1,000 times without thinking. One afternoon, late winter I think, like March maybe, still cold enough that the air felt sharp. I was home alone doing dishes. I had headphones on, music up, just zoning out and trying to get through chores. And then I heard someone scream my name. Not like a casual, "Hey," not like a neighbor calling from the porch. A scream from far away. The kind that makes your stomach drop before your brain even catches up. I froze, yanked one headphone off, thinking maybe I imagined it. Then I heard it again, clear as day. It was Maya's voice. No question. Same tone, same way she said my name when she was scared or hurt or mad and didn't want to admit it. And it was coming from the direction of the park. I didn't even think. I didn't stand there and weigh options. My body just moved. I dropped the sponge in the sink, left the water running, shoved my feet into my shoes, and walked out the door like I was on autopilot. And the whole time I'm walking, I'm scanning the street, looking toward the trees, the path leading down to the lake. I even called back, shouted her name, shouted my name, like, "Maya?" Just trying to get any response. Nothing. Not a word back. Not even another scream. Which somehow made it worse because it felt like whatever that was had already gotten what it wanted. Like it didn't need to keep calling once it knew I was coming. I got about halfway there, and that's when I saw my neighbor, this older woman named Tessa, getting into her car. She looked up and waved at me like it was any normal day. Just this small, ordinary moment. And that tiny wave snapped me out of it so hard it felt like waking up. Because in the same instant I thought, it can't be Maya. It's literally impossible. Maya wasn't supposed to be anywhere near here. She was hours away with my mom that day. There was no way she could be at that park, screaming my name. And as soon as my brain said that, my body reacted like it understood before I did. I got hit with this wave of nausea, hot and sudden. My throat tightened. My skin went cold, like somebody turned the lights off inside me. I stopped walking, because that's the part that haunts me. The voice wasn't just my sister's voice. It sounded like her when she was little, like 10 or 11. like the version of her that used to chase me around that park and wipe out on her bike and yell my name like I was her lifeline. And I hated how it felt like it called me once to make me take my headphones off, and then called again to pull me outside, like it knew the steps. After that, I turned around and went back home. I didn't go to the park. I didn't check just in case. I just couldn't. My instincts were screaming that if I kept walking, I'd be doing exactly what something wanted me to do. Nothing happened after that. No more voices, no weird shadows, no footsteps. I've been back to that lake plenty of times since then, in daylight, with people. Even alone once or twice, trying to prove to myself it was nothing. But later, much later, I started hearing stories about mimics, about things that copy voices or lure people by sounding like someone they trust. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. Like, what if something had been there long enough to hear us as kids? What if it listened while we played, memorized how Maya sounded when she was little, memorized how she used to yell my name 100 times when she fell or got scared or thought she saw a wasp? Because that park holds so many echoes. We practically poured our childhood into that place. But then, there's the other side of me, the side that tries to be logical. I just moved away from my sister in this emotional way, even if not forever. Maya's had mental health struggles since she was really young, and I've always felt like I understood her better than anyone else in our family. When we were kids, I used to have these awful nightmares about her getting hurt or dying, and I'd wake up panicked and go check if she was breathing. I carried that fear for years. So sometimes I wonder if I was just primed for it. If my brain was on high alert and turned some distant sound into the exact thing that would make me run. Maybe it was just a kid in the park yelling something that kind of sounded like my name. Maybe my brain filled in the blanks. Maybe I was stressed and lonely and worried, and it all twisted together for a minute. But I've told people other weird things that have happened to me. Stuff that's creepy, stuff that's easy to laugh off later. Most of those happened in one house, in the same couple rooms, and I can talk about them like they're campfire stories. This one still catches in my throat. Because for those few minutes, I wasn't thinking about ghosts or myths or anything paranormal. I was thinking my little sister was in trouble. And something knew exactly how to make me come running. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Paranormal M channel. Still having trouble sleeping? Don't worry, I've got you. I'm here to help you relax and drift off with paranormal stories and experiences from all around the world. Thanks so much for sharing your own experiences with us. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. I truly love this moment, sitting here with you and telling these stories. Now, without further ado, let's get started. So, this buddy of mine, let's call him Kieran, had to drop his car off for panel beating in this tiny middle-of-nowhere town, hours from where we live. Something to do with insurance, some admin mess. You know the vibe. Instead of doing the sensible thing, we decided, last minute, to turn it into a holiday. Kieran somehow finds this place to stay, an old-school camping ground way out in the sticks. We're paying 120 Rand a night, like basically the price of a takeaway meal, and we book it for a full week. We pitch up and immediately realize, okay, this place is not a normal campsite. It's abandoned. Like, properly abandoned. Rusted jungle gyms, broken swings squeaking in the wind, sun-bleached plastic toys half buried in sand. There are old cars scattered around from decades ago, just sitting there like the town forgot them. Even the furniture looks like it was built out of wagon wheels and regret. Turns out the property has new owners, and they're planning to renovate one day. They tell us we're the first people to stay there since they took it over, which explains why the price is basically charity. But honestly, the main dorm building is actually decent. Someone's already started fixing it up. There's a proper bathroom inside, a little kitchenette, 2 bedrooms, a back garden, and then this huge outdoor dining room that used to be the camp hall. For that price, we're feeling like kings. We're wrecked, though. We had to walk back from the panel beaters with all our bags, sweating, starving, dusty, and grumpy. But once we dump our stuff, we start getting excited. You know that feeling? No people, no noise, just you and your mate in the middle of nowhere. The sun's going down, so we fire up the barbecue. And this matters. We haven't started drinking yet. Not even a sip. Not even a sniff. We're being responsible. We cook first, then we drink. That's the plan. Food's done. We carry everything inside, sit down, and start eating like we haven't seen food in a week. Now here's where it flips. Kieran stands up and goes, "I'll grab the plates, you sit." He takes maybe 2 steps toward the sink, and suddenly he just folds. Like something hit him in the ribs. He slams into the wall, eyes wide, and yells, "Get off me!" I start laughing because I'm thinking he's messing around. Like, maybe he's trying to scare me. Maybe he's doing a bit. But he's not laughing. He whips around, grabs a knife, and starts charging into the bedrooms like there's an intruder hiding under a bed. He's proper panicked, searching corners, breathing hard, eyes flicking everywhere. And I'm still sitting there like, "Mate, the doors are locked. Relax. Stop being dramatic." Then, I swear to you, something nudges my leg. Not like a brush, not like a breeze, like a push. And at the exact same moment, the lights cut out. The solar unit shuts down. Dead. Pitch black. No warning, no flicker, just off. Instantly, my laugh dies in my throat. Because now it's not just him being weird. Now it's the dark. In this abandoned school dorm, in the middle of nowhere, and something just touched me. So we scramble for torches, stumbling around, bumping into furniture, whisper yelling at each other, trying to find the keys. We're moving like idiots, shoulders hunched, hearts in our throats, acting brave while fully not being brave at all. We find the key, yank the front door open, and the entire door frame is basically a spider's penthouse. A huge spider has built this thick, messy web across the frame like it owns the property. It's sitting there like a landlord. We slam that idea shut and go around to the back door instead, because between the fence slats, I'm not exaggerating, there are dozens and dozens of red button spiders, nesting everywhere. Little red dots like warning lights. It looks like the fence itself is alive. We just stand there, frozen, like our brains can't process what we're seeing. So now we're trapped between spider front door, spider back fence, no car, darkness, and whatever the hell just happened inside. We go back to the front. Kieran grabs a broom with shaking hands like he's about to duel a demon, sweeps the web aside, and we sprint out into the night. Pitch black, no streetlights, just that thick rural darkness where you can't even see your own hand unless the torch hits it. We run to the big old dining hall, the old school camp hall, thinking maybe we'll find, I don't know, sanity? A switch? A less haunted vibe? We push the door open, step inside, and then we stop. Because spiders start descending. Not 1 or 2. Not a, "Oh look, there's a spider." No, hundreds. They're gliding down on thin strands of silk like it's some kind of coordinated drop operation. Like the ceiling has opened and it's raining legs. And here's the thing that still messes with my head. They were not there earlier. Not during daylight. Not when we first arrived. That hall was empty. I'm sure of it. Now it's like the building has been waiting. We back out without speaking and end up sitting in the middle of the field on the grass because it's the only place that feels remotely safe. Open space, nothing overhead, nowhere for anything to crawl down from. And by some miracle, we'd left our phones and a little speaker outside near the barbecue table. Also, the brandy. So I do this slow, shaky, terrified little mission back to the table to retrieve the essentials, like I'm in a low-budget horror film and I've volunteered as tribute. I grab everything and run back to the field. And just picture this, okay? Two guys in their early 20s, sitting on cold grass in the middle of a dark, abandoned campsite. My mate sobbing on the phone to his girlfriend, let's call her Tamsin, trying to explain that we're surrounded by spiders and possibly being attacked by invisible ghosts. Meanwhile, jazz is drifting across the empty field from the speaker, something soft and classy, like Ella Fitzgerald, which makes it feel even more surreal. Like we're losing our minds, but politely. And somehow, at some point, the brandy ends up in a glass bottle that definitely wasn't the one we brought. Don't ask me how. I still can't explain it. Maybe we grabbed the wrong bottle in panic. Maybe we were delirious. Maybe the campsite wanted to contribute. We eventually pass out right there in the field. No tent, no blankets, just grass and fear. We wake up with stiff backs and dusty faces, still in the same spot, morning light finally making everything look normal again, like the night was a prank played by the universe. But we are not going back inside. We don't even go collect half our things. We don't pack properly. We don't cook. We don't even fetch our kitchenware out of the rooms. We had meat in the fridge, left it. We had plans for 7 nights, canceled by daylight. We arrange a ride home and bail like fugitives. And because we didn't want an argument or questions or some tough guy lecture from the owners, we message them something ridiculous like, "Sorry, we saw a cobra in the bedroom." And we leave it at that. I swear to you, I have never been that frightened in my life. And somewhere, buried in old messages, I'm pretty sure there are photos, maybe even a video of us sitting in that field, looking absolutely unwell, trying to laugh while we were genuinely falling apart. If I ever find them again, I'll know for sure it wasn't a fever dream. But honestly, even if it was, I never want to dream that again. Hey, so I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and it's one of those stories that sounds completely normal until you actually live it. I'm 19, and I still live at home with my parents and my brothers and sisters. We've been in the same house for, honestly, most of my life. My parents bought the land years ago and built the place themselves. From the outside, you'd never guess anything was off. Big home, big yard, a couple of animals running around. The kind of place people would call peaceful. But inside, there's always been this feeling, like you're being watched. And I know how that sounds, because there isn't a single obvious thing you can point to. The walls look normal, the rooms look normal, but some corners feel heavy. Hallways feel wrong in a way that makes your skin tighten, like the air is thicker where it shouldn't be. There's one spot though, one place that's always been the worst. Behind the house there's this narrow alley-like walkway, kind of tucked away, like the house has a shadow it never shakes off. Even in the middle of the day, none of us ever liked going near it. It's not that it's dangerous or anything, it just feels hostile, like you're stepping into someone else's space and they don't want you there. When I was younger and friends came over, it always happened the same way. Some kid would wander toward that back alley out of curiosity, and then, like clockwork, they'd come bolting back, crying or pale as a sheet, swearing, "There's a man back there." And the thing is, we live surrounded by walls. It's just us. No neighbors close enough, no easy way anyone could be back there without being seen. So every time it happened, we'd all kind of laugh it off. But the laugh was always, thin, like we didn't totally believe our own jokes. When I was in middle school, maybe around 7th grade, my parents started acting different. Not just uneasy, but genuinely scared. One evening they sat all of us down, me and my siblings, and my mom, Marisol, had this serious, almost shaky look on her face. Didn't even meet our eyes. And they gave us rules. Not clean your room rules. Not be home before dark rules. Like old rules. The kind you can feel in your bones. They told us, don't whistle inside the house. Ever. Any mirrors in bedrooms had to be turned to face the wall. And absolutely don't look in mirrors at night. If you hear knocking after dark, no, you didn't. Don't run loud machines at night. No vacuuming, no noisy cleaning. And the biggest one, at night, you close everything. Windows, curtains, doors, and under no circumstances do you peek outside once it's dark. At the time, we didn't argue. It was weird, sure, but my parents grew up around a lot of countryside traditions and warnings and don't do that superstitions. So it kind of slid into our lives like it belonged there. And then, over the years, little things happened. Not constant, not dramatic, just enough that you'd notice, and then try not to. Like this one time, I bought this really nice lavender mechanical pencil, the kind that's stupidly expensive for no reason except it feels fancy. I bought one. I kept it in my desk. Then one day I opened the drawer and there were 2 identical caps sitting there, like the pencil had multiplied and left evidence behind. I stared at them forever, trying to make my brain accept a normal explanation. Not like a prank, not like misplacing something. More like something was playing with the idea of ownership. That creepy back alley leads toward this back room that's kind of neglected, part storage, part unfinished space. The floor creaks in a way it doesn't anywhere else. Parts of it are worn down like the house just gave up there. I never questioned it much, because when you grow up somewhere, even the strange parts start to feel ordinary. Here's something else that matters. I've dealt with night terrors and sleep paralysis since I was little. It runs my nights sometimes, so I usually sleep near my sisters because it helps me feel grounded when I wake up panicking. But recently, I wanted to feel more grown up, more independent. So I told myself I was being ridiculous and decided I'd start sleeping alone in that back room. And that's when things got worse. My night terrors ramped up fast, like suddenly happening once or twice a week, which is not normal for me. I kept trying to push through, telling myself it was stress or the new sleep arrangement or whatever excuse I could find. But then this one night happened, and I can't explain it away. I know what my episodes feel like. I know the fog and the confusion and how details get slippery. This wasn't like that. I woke up at around 4:10 a.m. I remember the time because afterward I just stared at my phone like it could save me. And I opened my eyes, and there was a man standing in my room. Just standing there. He was facing me like he'd been waiting for me to wake up. He looked older, maybe late 40s or 50s. Rough beard, deep lines in his forehead. Clothes that looked worn down, like he'd been living outside for a long time. And the way he stared at me wasn't frantic or aggressive. It was calm, almost patient, like I was the strange thing in the room, not him. I tried to scream and nothing came out. Not even my body wouldn't cooperate, and all I could do was cry silently, like my fear had nowhere to go except out of my eyes. And then he turned, and he walked out of the room like he belonged there. The second he left, the whole room changed. That's the part I can't forget. It felt like pressure releasing, like something heavy had been sitting on my chest and then just stepped off. Like the air got lighter, like something physical left. I sat up and I couldn't stop shaking. I cried so hard I felt sick, and I didn't sleep again. When I told my parents in the morning, my mom went pale in this way that made my stomach drop. because it wasn't surprise, it was recognition. My dad didn't even ask a lot of questions. He just said, firmly, that I was never sleeping in that room again. They tried to comfort me with logic, saying maybe it was a hallucination, maybe it was a sleep thing, because we have cameras outside and there's no realistic way a person could have gotten in without someone noticing. They weren't trying to dismiss me. I think they just didn't want to say the other possibility out loud. But I know what I saw. And then something happened that made it harder to pretend it was all in my head. A couple months ago, we got a dog. His name is Miso, and he's the sweetest thing. The kind of dog who follows you around like you're his whole world. He sleeps outside in the yard in his little doghouse, and at first, everything was fine. But lately, almost every single night, he loses it. Sometimes it goes on for hours. He's exhausted. I'm exhausted. And I just keep thinking about all those kids over the years, swearing they saw a man back there. Then what I saw in that room. And now my dog reacting to that exact same spot, night after night. So, yeah. I don't really know what to do with all of that. I just know there's something about that hallway behind our house. Something that's been there longer than I've been alive. And whatever it is, it doesn't want to be ignored anymore. Okay, so I'm gonna keep myself anonymous, and I changed the names in this story for privacy. I'll call my aunt Marisol and my sister Jade. So, the three of us were always close, like the kind of close where we'd stay up way too late talking about creepy stuff and laughing at the exact moment you're not supposed to laugh. We've all been into the paranormal for as long as I can remember. Not in a we're experts way, more like we're the people who slow down at haunted house billboards and go, wait, what if it's real? One night, we decided to make it a little adventure, just a girls' night kind of thing. We picked this park that was basically swallowed by trees, super quiet, lots of shadows, and we downloaded one of those ghost communication apps on Jade's phone. We weren't really expecting anything. Honestly, it was more for fun than anything, even though we had had weird experiences before. We got there late, like after midnight late. The playground was a little ways away, maybe like the length of half a football field, and there were barely any streetlights. The park itself was dark. That kind of darkness that makes you feel like the world ends at the edge of your flashlight beam. Marisol had brought her dog, Ranger, and he's not one of those yappy dogs. He's trained, protective, and calm. So even though we were creeped out, we didn't feel unsafe. Plus, we weren't completely isolated. There were houses not too far off. Like, if we screamed loud enough, somebody would probably hear us. And this is important. All three of our phones were fully charged. Like, 100%. We checked. So we sit down near this big tree. Jade leaned back against it, and we open the app. We start asking the basic questions, the cheesy ones you always ask because you don't know what else to say. Is anyone here? What's your name? Can you hear us? At first, nothing. Just silence and the sound of leaves shifting and us whisper laughing at ourselves. Then, after a while, one of us, pretty sure it was Marisol, goes, "Okay, do you want us to leave?" And I swear to you, the app spits out one single word. Run. And it wasn't just the word. The app played it back in this soft, whispery voice, like a girl's voice. And the moment it happened, Ranger snapped his head up and started barking. Not like there's a squirrel barking, like there is something behind you barking. And the thing is, he was staring past Jade, like directly behind her. Jade froze. I remember my stomach dropping so hard it felt like it fell through my ribs. We all flicked on our flashlights at the same time, sweeping the trees, scanning the shadows. There was nobody there. But it was that kind of nobody where you're like, okay, but why do I still feel watched? At that point, it was close to 1 a.m., and we didn't even argue about it. We just decided we were done. We grabbed our stuff and started walking fast toward the car. And as we're going, over Ranger still barking, we hear it. A scream. Like a full-on, blood-curdling woman's scream from the direction of the park. I remember thinking it sounded too close, and also too wrong. Like it didn't echo the way it should have, or maybe my brain just didn't know how to process it. We basically power walked into a run. Then we passed under one of the few working streetlights, and my eyes flicked to the ground because, I don't know, sometimes you look down when you're scared. I saw our shadows. Mine, Marisol's, and between mine and Jade's, there was a third shadow. Small, like a child, like a little girl. And I know how this sounds. I know. But it didn't match the shape of any of us, and it wasn't Ranger either. It was standing where nobody was standing. We all jumped in, slammed the doors, locked them, and drove away without saying a word. Just pure silence. The kind where you can hear your own pulse. We'd been driving maybe 10 minutes, 15, and out of nowhere it felt like the car hit something huge, like a pothole the size of a bathtub or an animal. The car jerked, we swerved, and then the tire blew. We pulled over, shaking, and there was nothing. The road was freshly paved, no debris, no potholes, nothing to explain it. We got out to check the tire and it looked wrong. Not just flat. It looked like it had been cut, like the sidewall had been slashed. Immediately we got back in the car because, look, it's 3 women in the middle of nowhere, late at night, and we suddenly didn't feel brave anymore. We locked the doors again and started trying to call people. We're sitting there like that for a while, making calls, watching the road, Ranger growling low in the back. And then Marisol whispers, "Do you see that?" There's a man, just standing near the road, way too close, like a few steps from the car. None of us saw him approach. He was just suddenly there, and I can't even explain what looked off about him. He wasn't doing anything technically threatening, but everything in my body screamed wrong. His posture, his stillness, the way he stared straight into the car like he could see through the windows. He started walking, slowly. He walked around the car, still staring at us, not speaking, not waving, not checking if we were okay, just circling us like we were something he'd found. It was one of the most unsettling things I've ever experienced. And then, just as slowly as he appeared, he was gone. Not like he walked away into the distance, like he was there, and then he wasn't. And here's the part that hit me afterward. From where he had been standing, you could see directly into the opening in the trees where we had been sitting earlier. Like, perfectly. It was the only little gap. If we'd pulled over even a few feet forward or backward, that view would have been blocked. I pointed it out, and we just kind of stared at each other like, no way. Then we looked at our phones again. Remember how they were all at 100%? All 3 of them were at 10%. Exactly 10. Not 8, not 12. 10, 10, 10. And we hadn't been watching videos or using Flash non-stop or anything like that. Just that app and a few calls. At that point, we were like, okay, one more call, then we save battery. Jade calls our mom. And the second my mom answers, before Jade can even say anything, my mom goes, "What's wrong? I just woke up from a bad dream about you. Where are you?" Like she'd been yanked awake. Jade tells her everything in this rushed, shaky voice, and my mom doesn't hesitate. She just says, "Stay locked in the car. I'm coming." She came and picked us up, and by the time we finally got home, it was around 3 a.m. We crashed immediately. And just for context, we didn't have a spare tire because it had been used earlier that week, so we couldn't even fix it ourselves in the moment. The next day, when it was daylight and the world felt normal again, we went back to deal with the car. Marisol followed in her own car, and I rode with Jade. We're driving away, maybe 5 or 6 minutes down the road, and we're talking quietly, trying to convince ourselves we're being dramatic. And then we hear it. A giggle. Like a little kid giggle. We both stopped mid-sentence, just staring forward. We checked the radio. It was off. Completely off. We were like, okay, maybe it was outside. And right then, I reached down toward the cup holder to grab my drink. This sounds so stupid, but it matters. And I lifted the lid to crunch the last bit of ice. A bee flew out of the cup. We opened the doors, hoping it'll fly out, and then more bees. One after another, just emerging from inside the car. Not through the windows, not from outside, from inside. We sat there on the side of the road, doors wide open, watching bee after bee fly out like the car was some kind of hive we didn't know we were driving around in. It went on for easily 20 minutes, maybe longer. Long enough that it stopped being funny, stopped being scary, and just became surreal. Like reality had a glitch and we were stuck watching it loop. After that day, we never went back to that park. It's been almost 4 years, and we still talk about it like, maybe it was all coincidences. But every time we say that, there's this little pause. Because deep down, none of us fully believe it was just coincidence. And lately, we've been joking, half joking, about going back. And I don't know if that's brave, or if that's the dumbest idea we've ever had. Alright, so I'm gonna try to tell this the way it actually felt, not the way I wish it had felt. Because honestly, even saying it out loud still makes my stomach tighten a little. So my girlfriend, Marisol, got a job offer in Nashville, and we were moving from Texas. We decided to do a quick trip, like less than a week, just to house hunt and get a feel for neighborhoods. We booked this Airbnb in East Nashville because it had this ridiculous number of glowing reviews. Like, best stay ever, so cozy, we'll be back, all that. And when we pulled up, the street wasn't exactly comforting. Not totally awful, but rougher than we expected. Still, the place itself, super clean, nicely decorated. It should have felt like a win. But the second I walked through the door, I got this weird, immediate feeling, like the air had weight to it. Not creepy old house vibes, more like, don't trust this place. And I tried to rationalize it, you know? New city, unfamiliar area, we're tired from the drive. My brain was doing its little anxiety math. There were 3 of us staying there, me, Marisol, and our friend Tessa. And we had my dog, Ranger, with us too. Ranger's usually chill. He's done long drives, hotels, all of it. Doesn't spook easy. Anyway, we all ended up going to bed early that first night. I remember checking the time because it felt ridiculous. Like, we were in bed before 9 p.m. Everyone was exhausted. Night 1. We're in the master bedroom. Door fully closed. We're just starting to drift off when, out of nowhere, there's this violent slam on the bedroom door. Not a normal knock. Not like someone bumped it. It sounded like 2 hands hitting it as hard as possible. The mirror hanging on the back of the door rattled so hard it actually swung. I shot up instantly. Marisol did too. We both heard this soft sound right after, like a woman whimpering, like a frightened little kind of sound. So I jump up and I'm calling out, "Tessa, are you okay?" Because my first thought is she fell or something. And then my brain does the next thought, which is, that slam wasn't an accident. I grab what I can to protect us. My heart is pounding, and I yank open the door. Nothing. Hallway's empty. Bathroom's empty. The other bedroom, empty. Closets, shower, behind doors. I checked everything. The place wasn't huge. There was nowhere someone could hide without me finding them. And the whole time, Ranger is just staring, stiff as a statue, like he's listening to something I can't hear. We were so shaken we just left. We got in the car and drove toward downtown just to be around lights and people and noise. Like we needed to reset our nervous systems. And here's the thing, Ranger, the entire drive from Texas, didn't bark once. 10 hours, nothing. But as we pulled away from that house, he lost it. He started barking like an absolute maniac at the back window. Deep, angry, non-stop. Like he was trying to warn something off. I kept checking the mirror thinking maybe someone was following us. There wasn't. No cars close. No obvious threat. But Ranger was acting like there was something right there with us. That was the first night. Night 2. We were done playing brave after that. Nobody wanted to sleep alone. So we dragged ourselves into this other bedroom that had 2 beds, kind of like a sleepover for survival situation. We left some lights on in the kitchen and propped the bedroom doors so they couldn't swing shut. We finally fall asleep, maybe 2 hours of real sleep, tops. And at around 1 a.m., the bedroom light clicks on by itself. I get back in bed. Not long after that, maybe minutes, we hear footsteps in the hallway. Slow, heavy, like someone walking with purpose. Not a soft shuffle, not the house settling. It sounded like boots on a hard floor. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Coming closer. Ranger bolts upright, leaps off the bed, and runs toward the door like he's ready to launch himself at whatever's out there. And that's when my blood went cold again. Because if it was nothing, why was my dog reacting like that? So I follow him out, heart racing, and, again, I check the whole house. Empty. No one. Nothing. No doors open. No windows disturbed. We end up in the living room with the TV on, like the world's saddest campout, and we stay there for hours. At some point, the kitchen light got turned off, and it stayed off, so whatever happened wasn't just, all the lights are glitching. Around 4 a.m., I tried to go back and sleep in that bedroom again. I lasted maybe 10 minutes before the bedroom light turns on again. Just clicks on like someone flipped it. That time, I didn't even argue with reality. I turned it off, left the room, and I stayed out. And weirdly, after that night, the light never turned itself on again. Like it got what it wanted and stopped performing. Before the next day, I tried this thing where I set little tells. Like, I left a cabinet slightly open. I placed a chair at an angle against a door. I left a laundry basket in a spot where you'd notice if it moved. Just to see if anything shifted when we weren't paying attention. Final day. This part is what pushed it from weird to absolutely not. We're all in the kitchen cooking, together, close enough that you can see everyone's hands. Tessa steps away to use the bathroom in the master suite. She's in there maybe a minute, and then she comes back out looking pale and tight around the mouth, like she's trying not to freak us out. And she goes, "Which one of you just said hello?" We're like, "What?" She swears she heard a woman's voice from the bedroom area say, "Hello," like it was casual, like someone was standing right there in the room. She even answered out loud, thinking maybe Marisol was messing with her or called out from the hall. But we were all in the kitchen the entire time. Not one of us moved. Not one of us spoke. So I go back to the room, and right away I notice something. That chair I'd wedged near the door, one of my little tells, wasn't where I left it. It had been moved back closer to the dining area, like someone picked it up and set it down somewhere else. And nobody touched it. Everyone swore they didn't. No joking, no pranks, no gotcha. And at that point, honestly, I didn't care if it was paranormal or a person or just some nightmare chain of coincidences. The feeling in that house had gotten so heavy, like this oppressive, unfriendly pressure, that it stopped being a spooky story and started feeling like a real safety problem. So we packed up. We left. We spent the rest of the trip in a hotel. And I know how it sounds. I'm aware. But I keep coming back to the same thing. Too much happened in too short a time. The slamming, the footsteps, the light turning on repeatedly, the voice, things moving. Plus that constant sense of being watched and not welcome. It wasn't just creepy. It felt mean. And that's the part that still sticks with me. Not what we heard or saw. It's what it felt like that place wanted. So I moved into this house when I was about 7. Cute little place, nothing fancy, but I remember being excited. And then, like not even that long after we unpacked, some neighborhood kids started telling me, all wide-eyed and dramatic, that there were rumors our house was haunted. And listen, at 7, I was obsessed with scary stuff. Horror movies, ghost stories, all of it. So at the time I was like, wait, seriously? That's awesome. Now? Now I'm like, absolutely not. The first thing that ever happened was when I was a kid, home in the living room by myself. Out of nowhere, I hear doors in the basement opening and slamming shut. Not like earthquake loud, but clear enough that there was no mistaking what it was. That hollow, heavy thunk sound. I froze, like my whole body just locked up. And I remember thinking, okay, don't be stupid, listen. Make sure you're not imagining it. It kept going for a bit, and then my brain flipped from ghost to someone broke in, because there's a basement door that leads outside. So I'm panicking, trying to be brave, walking over there with my heart basically pounding in my throat. And the second I get near the basement door, it stops. I turn on the light, I look around, I check everything. Nothing. No footprints, no open windows, no movement, just quiet. And I was terrified, obviously, but I hate admitting this. I was also weirdly intrigued back then, like it felt unreal in this sick, fascinating way. Then another time, I'm in the living room with my mom. Well, my aunt, technically, because she was the one raising me then. Her name's Marisol. Our house is small, walls are thin, you hear everything. We're just talking, normal stuff, and she suddenly cuts me off and goes, really low, "Shh, do you hear that?" We both go dead silent. And there it is again. Basement doors opening and shutting, harder this time. Hard enough you could almost feel it in the floor, like little vibrations through the couch. It lasted maybe a minute, 2, and then it stopped. And we just kind of looked at each other like, welp. And then we literally went back to whatever we were doing, like we had no idea what else to do. But the worst thing, the thing that still makes my stomach drop when I think about it, happened when I was in middle school. It was around 3:40 in the morning. I couldn't sleep. I was in the living room with the TV low, watching some random late-night videos and scrolling through comics on my phone. Everything's dark, quiet, that kind of heavy nighttime silence. And then I hear Marisol calling my name, clear as day. At first I'm like, okay, I'm exhausted, I'm jumpy, my brain's playing tricks. But it doesn't stop. It keeps happening. Calm, normal, like she just wants me to come over. Like, hey, come here. But something felt off, like my skin knew before my brain did. I turn the TV down even more and I realize, no, I'm not imagining this. This is real sound. So I get up, moving slow, trying not to breathe too loud, and I follow the voice. I'm expecting it to be coming from her bedroom, but it isn't. It's coming from the basement. I swear to you, my whole body went cold, and the basement door was cracked open. I'm standing there at the top of the stairs, staring down into this pure black nothing, and I can feel my eyes watering because I'm trying so hard not to cry. And then, right as I'm staring into the dark, the voice stops. Just gone. I slam the basement door shut, like, nope, and I go to her room. I shake her shoulder. She mumbles, half asleep. Yeah? Were you calling me? And she's instantly confused. No, what are you talking about? I went back to the living room and sat there, trying not to fall apart. Like I'm telling myself, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. Even though I didn't believe it. And then maybe 15, 20 minutes later, it starts again. Same voice, same tone. Saying my name like it's normal. I didn't move. I didn't answer. I stared straight ahead and waited for it to stop, like if I ignored it hard enough, it would get bored. And either that same night or a night soon after, this part blurs because I was so freaked out, a spoon literally flew at me while I was sitting on the couch. Like, not slid, not fell. Flew. It came from the direction of the kitchen and clattered on the floor right near my legs. After that, nothing for a long time. Years. So I started telling myself maybe it was just old house sounds. Maybe stress. Maybe I was dramatic. I tried to pack it away. And then last summer break 2025, I'm up late again in the living room, watching YouTube, just trying to relax. For context, my living room has this front door with a stained glass window, a big window beside it, and then 2 glass doors on the right that go out to the back deck. I'm watching videos, minding my business, and I notice this reddish-orange light outside by the front door. At first it's faint, like a glow you'd ignore. But then it slowly gets brighter. Like, brighter, lighting up the patio, reflecting in the glass. And I'm sitting there frozen because my first thought is, someone is outside. Like someone is standing there watching me. The light looked almost like firelight, but it wasn't flickering like flames. It was just this steady, unnatural orange-red glow. I stared at it for what felt like forever. Probably only a few minutes, but when you're scared, time gets weird. And then it slowly faded out. No footsteps, no shadow crossing, no one walking up, no one walking away. And with how open that area is, I should have seen something. I finally forced myself to turn on the outside light and check. Nothing. Nobody there. I left lights on after that. Like full on, I'm not sitting in a dark living room mode for months. Then, later that month, around the 19th I think, it happens again. But this time it's on the back deck near the glass doors. I hear heavy movement out there. My first thought is raccoon or stray cat. But it's too heavy, too slow, too deliberate. Like something is searching. And I refuse to look. I don't know how to explain it, but I felt like if I looked directly at whatever was out there, it would become real in a way I couldn't undo. Like eye contact would be permission. So I'm texting my friends, panicking, fingers shaking so bad I keep mistyping. And while I'm staring at my phone, I see, just in my peripheral vision, something pale, like white, leaning close to the glass. I felt sick instantly. like nausea and fear at the same time. I started crying without even meaning to. It stayed there for what felt like 10 minutes. I didn't move. I didn't breathe right. I just sat there and waited for the sound to stop. Eventually, it went quiet, and I waited even longer before I finally forced myself to close the curtains, because I was scared that if I moved too soon, it would react. A few days later, the orange-red light came back outside the front door. This time, my little string lights were on, so I could tell it wasn't just some weird reflection. I tried to record it. Like, finally, proof, right? I got nothing. Just a useless, dark video, and me, whispering like an idiot. When I checked outside afterward, there were only Marisol's footprints in the snow, leading from the driveway to the door and back inside. No extra tracks. No sign anyone had been standing there. No explanation. And that's what kills me. Because I have the frantic texts to my friends. I have the failed recording attempt. But I don't have anything that makes people go, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's real." So when I tell people, they laugh, or they shrug it off, or they act like I'm being dramatic. But I'm not. I'm genuinely scared, and I'm genuinely confused. I don't even care if the answer is paranormal. I just want an answer. I want someone to take me seriously and tell me what this could be. Anything. Because living with unanswered questions like that in your own house makes you feel like you're going crazy. And I swear, I'm not making it up. I just need someone to believe me. So, let me set the scene for you. I was 18 and it was 2020. I was in southern Arizona, and I was doing that thing where life is so upside down you end up living out of your car for a while. Not a cute van life version, just me, a beat-up sedan, and the desert. One night I went to this rave way out in the middle of nowhere. If you're from Arizona and you've been around that scene, you might know the spot. People call it the Quarry sometimes, kind of like this carved-out dip in the land where everyone parks around the edges and the brush forms a weird natural fence. Cactus, scrub, that dusty smell that sticks to your clothes. I was on mushrooms, yeah. Not an insane dose, but enough that the music felt like it had a heartbeat. At some point I needed a break, so I slipped away from the crowd and climbed into the back seat of my car. I remember sinking down and exhaling like my bones were tired. I'm sitting there, looking out the window at all these silhouettes moving and the bass thumping through the ground. And then I saw it. At first, my brain tried to label it as just a person coming out from the line of parked cars. But it wasn't right. It looked human-shaped, but it was made of shadow, like dark charcoal, not fully black, more like the absence of light in the shape of a body. And it had too many arms. Not tentacles. That's the part that still messes with me. They weren't flowing or wavy. They were arms, like actual human arms, with elbows and hands, moving the way arms move. Just more of them. 6, 8? I honestly couldn't tell because they kept circling and flicking around its head and shoulders, almost like it was dancing. It stepped out from the brush line and started walking toward the crowd. And I swear to you, this is the moment my stomach dropped. It walked through the people dancing. Not around them, not between them, through them, like they weren't there, like it wasn't solid, like the crowd was fog and it was wind. I froze. I didn't even blink. I just watched it glide forward, arms moving in this strange rhythm, and it kept going until it passed out of my view and I couldn't see it anymore from where I was curled up in the back seat. And then I realized I was breathing like I'd been underwater. A little while later, maybe minutes, maybe longer, time was weird. My boyfriend at the time, Eli, knocked on the passenger side window. He was on the other side of the car, leaning down, trying to catch my eyes. I unlocked the door and he climbed in, and the second he saw my face, he went, "What happened? What's wrong?" Because apparently I had the exact expression people mean when they say, "You look like you just saw a ghost." And I told him, pretty much word for word, "I think I just did." I explained what I saw, the shadow body, the too many arms, the way it moved, and how it went straight through the crowd like everyone was air. I expected him to laugh it off or tell me I was just tripping, but he didn't. He got quiet and said something like, "I've seen a lot of weird stuff out here, especially at this spot. Not that exact thing, but yeah, weird stuff." That almost freaked me out more, honestly. Because listen, I've tripped plenty. I know the difference between the usual psychedelic visuals and something that feels separate from you. Most mushroom visuals are colorful, patterned, kind of glowing and alive. This wasn't that. This was muted, heavy, gray, like an object in the world, not a distortion in my eyes. And what really made it worse was the fear. And then, once Eli was with me, it faded fast. Like whatever spell had me locked in place snapped the moment another person entered my little bubble of reality. Part of me still wants to file it under mushrooms plus desert plus sleep deprivation plus loud music equals brain did a thing. But I only saw it once. One time. And I've never seen anything like it again, tripping or sober, anywhere. I can still picture it perfectly. That shadow gray body, the extra arms moving like a strange halo, and the way it didn't interact with people as solid matter at all. And here's the part I can't ignore. That place always felt charged, like the desert there was watching. People had more bad trips out there than anywhere else I'd been. More stories, more panic, more something's off. And I've had other intense experiences out there too, beautiful ones, the kind that crack you open. But that night, in that back seat, it felt like the desert showed me something that wasn't meant for me. So yeah, I'm telling you because I still don't know what I saw. Have you ever seen anything like that? A shadow person, something human-shaped but wrong. Something that moved through people like it wasn't real. Or maybe, like we weren't. Hey, so I've been quietly reading posts like this for a while, and I finally decided to say something. I've had those hair on the back of your neck moments before, like you're being watched, like the air gets heavy. But there are 2 nights from my childhood that I still can't talk myself out of. They just didn't have a neat, logical explanation. I was around 10, maybe 11, so, like, a long time ago now. And I need you to understand something about me back then. I was terrified of the dark, and honestly, pure silence scared me even more. Silence felt alive, like it was waiting. So I always had something on. A little radio. Mine was this bright blue, goofy one shaped like a cartoon character. And sometimes I'd sneak the TV on low just for the glow. Not because I was watching, just because I needed the sound and the light to make the room feel normal. But one night, I got punished. I hadn't cleaned my room. Clothes everywhere, toys, junk, the whole disaster. So my mom said, no radio, no TV, lights out. And she meant it. So there I am in bed, in a room that's pitch black and too quiet. The kind of quiet where you can hear your own thoughts breathing. I'm lying on my back, staring up at the ceiling I can't even see, trying to force myself to fall asleep. And then I hear it. This soft, slow scratching, coming from my closet door. At first, I told myself it had to be our cat, Milo, because he'd get shut in rooms all the time, and he'd scratch when he wanted out. That was the easy answer, the comforting answer. But then my brain caught up with me, and I remembered. Milo hadn't even been in my room that day. And the way my bedroom door worked, it would swing shut on its own every time. You couldn't leave it cracked. So there was no way he'd wandered in. And the second I realized that, my stomach just dropped. I didn't scream. I didn't even move. I did that quiet kid panic. You know the kind, where you're scared you'll make it worse if you acknowledge it. I pulled the blanket up over my head like it could protect me, squeezed my eyes shut, and just tried to disappear into my own bed. And then, something pushed up from underneath. I'm not exaggerating. It felt like hands under the mattress, like someone was trying to lift it, like they were trying to tip me off the bed. The mattress rose just enough for me to feel it shift, and I remember clutching the covers so hard my knuckles hurt. And then the bed started shaking. Not like a little tremor, not like, maybe it's in my head. It shook like someone had climbed up and was jumping on it, full weight, up and down, while I was trapped right there in the middle of it. My whole body went cold. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe right. I swear I felt pinned. And before anyone does that thing where they're like, maybe it was a sibling messing with you. No. My older sister Tessa wasn't living with us then, and my little brother Evan was still a toddler. There was no one sneaking into my room to pull some prank. And even if there was, how do you prank someone from under the bed? I don't know how long it lasted. It felt forever, but it could have been a minute, maybe less. Time does that weird, stretchy thing when you're scared. Eventually, I worked up the courage to yank the blanket down, and everything was normal. The room didn't feel heavy anymore. The silence wasn't crushing. It wasn't even fully dark. There was this faint, ordinary glow coming through the window, like the night had shifted while I was hiding. And that's what messed with me the most. How fast it went from wrong to fine, like someone flipped a switch. My mom came up a little while later, half annoyed, half confused, and asked why I was out of bed. And I didn't tell her any of it. I couldn't. It felt too ridiculous and too real at the same time. I just looked at her and said, really calmly, I cleaned my room. Can I have the TV back? She didn't give me the TV, but she did let me turn the radio on. And I slept with that thing right by my ear like it was a life raft. Nothing ever happened again in that exact way. Not that intense, not that physical. But the second night I'm going to tell you about, honestly, that one still turns my stomach. Same age, same house, different night. Back then, my bedroom door used to have a deadbolt, and it was one of those dumb ones that would click shut automatically. My dad eventually removed it because it kept locking people out, but it left behind this perfectly round little hole in the door, like a peephole at kid height. I used to look through it sometimes when I couldn't sleep, just watching the hallway, feeling safer knowing what was out there. So one night I'm lying in bed, and I put my eye to that little hole, and I see a figure in the hallway. It wasn't my mom. It wasn't my dad. It wasn't anyone shaped like anyone I knew. It was just black, like a person-shaped absence, tall and thin, no detail, no face, just a smooth, shadowy outline. And it was moving toward my door, slowly. It stopped right in front of it, and I swear to you, it felt like it noticed me looking, like it turned its head the tiniest bit and just stared through that hole, straight at my eye. Then it walked away down the hall, and I remember thinking, okay, maybe I imagined it. Maybe it's just the light playing tricks. Maybe... But then it came back, walked right up to my door again, stopped, stared again, and then it turned, like it had decided something, and it walked toward the attic access at the end of the hallway. Here's the thing. That attic door was always locked. Not like we don't go up there locked, like padlocked, a real lock. Nobody was opening it casually. It wasn't accessible. Not to me, not to anyone without a key. And the figure just went into it anyway. Not by opening it, not by fiddling with the lock. It just disappeared into that spot like the attic swallowed it. I pulled back from the hole so fast I got dizzy. I shoved myself under the blankets again, but this time it wasn't even about silence or darkness. It was about the fact that something had been out there, in my hallway, behaving like it had a routine, like it was checking if I was watching. Those 2 nights didn't just scare me, they rewired me. After that, I started paying attention to every creak, every cold spot, every weird shadow. I started reading about paranormal stuff like I was trying to find a category to put my own fear into. And I know that sounds dramatic, but it's true. Because once you've felt a bed lift under you, once you've watched something faceless stare back through a hole in your door, it's hard to go back to believing the world is only what you can explain. Anyway, I know how this sounds, but I'm telling you exactly how it happened, exactly how it felt. And those nights still feel close, even now. Like if I think about them too hard, the house wakes up again. Hey, so I've never really told this story publicly before. And honestly, if you read it and think I'm overreacting or imagining things, fine. I'd almost rather you think that, because the alternative is heavier. People died. People suffered. And even now, years later, I still don't fully understand what happened. I'm going to say everything pretty bluntly, just because that's the only way I know how to get through it without getting lost in emotion. So, the first thing. I was 12 when my dad died. It was right before Easter, like the kind of night where the house feels extra still because everyone's supposed to wake up to something sweet the next morning. Except that night, my dad got out of bed, walked out of the house, and drove to the edge of town. He parked on the shoulder of this quiet road and took his own life in the car. And that's the part that messes with you, you know? Because people always ask, were there signs? And I can tell you there were things, but nothing that screamed, this is where it's headed. It was more like tiny glitches in the way he moved through the world. He started getting weirdly suspicious of my mom, like he'd say stuff about her leaving him, even though she wasn't. He'd suddenly insist nobody liked him, even though his buddy from work, Marcus, kept calling and couldn't figure out why my dad wasn't answering. He'd do these odd little routines, like moving fragile stuff to safer places, and then when something inevitably fell anyway, he'd explode like it was personal. One night, my little sister got a paper cut, and I couldn't find the bandages fast enough, and my dad lost it. Not normal angry, just sharp and panicky. My mom, Lena, is the kind of person who believes in therapy like other people believe in vitamins. She grew up around family chaos and always swore she'd be the get help early kind of mom. And still, she didn't see it. I didn't see it. Nobody did. Or maybe we did, but our brains refused to connect the dots. After he died, we didn't do the whole everything he touched is haunted thing. We kept his stuff. And when I was 13, my mom redid my bedroom and dragged up this old charcoal gray recliner my dad used to sit in every day. Like he lived in that chair. He'd come home, drop into it, and just melt there for hours. I was actually happy to have it in my room. It felt like a piece of him. And then, this is where it gets hard to explain without sounding insane, it started feeling wrong. Not sad, not nostalgic. Wrong. It's like, have you ever been alone and you suddenly get that prickly sense that someone is behind you? That kind of electricity on your skin? It was that, but centered on the chair. I would look at it and feel like it was looking back. And the creepiest part was that the feeling went away if I sat in it. So I started sitting in it more. I even tried sleeping in it once or twice because when I was in the chair, the room felt normal. But if I was in bed and the chair was across the room, I'd get that awful, stomach-dropping feeling that something was watching me from over there. And then one day, midway through high school, it just stopped. Like a switch flipped. The recliner became just a recliner again. But the relief didn't last, because right after that, my closet became the problem. I had this walk-in closet, and if you hear walk-in closet, you probably picture teenage girl heaven. But mine wasn't really a closet. It was basically a narrow little passage that led to the attic access. Every holiday, relatives would tromp up there to grab decorations, and they'd come in and out through my room like it was a hallway. I started keeping the door shut constantly. I stopped hanging up clothes because that meant opening it. I didn't tell anyone because, what do you even say? Hey Mom, my closet feels like it has eyes. But here's the part that still makes my skin crawl. When friends slept over, they'd ask to change clothes, and my closet was the obvious place for privacy. And for over a year, multiple friends would come out of there acting weird, quiet, stiff, like they just walked through cold air. Eventually, one of them admitted it. She was like, "I don't like your closet. It feels like something is in there." And I remember this wave of relief washing over me because I wasn't alone. I wasn't making it up. So we did what teenage girls do. We tried to laugh it off. We made jokes that a demon lived in there, but it was fine because the closet was such a mess we'd definitely hear him trip over shoes if he tried to come out. But even while we joked, my nights got worse. I started waking up frozen, unable to move, like my body was unplugged but my brain was wide awake. Sometimes it felt like someone was touching my hair, like fingers combing through it, while I lay there trapped. Once, I swear I saw my little sister, Ruby, standing near the foot of my bed. I was about to ask what she wanted, and then it hit me. Ruby wasn't even home. She was sleeping at a friend's house. I shut my eyes so hard it hurt. I prayed and cried until I fell back asleep. Then I graduated, went off to college, and everything stopped. Like someone took their hands off my life. I slept fine. No creepy corners. No weird closets. I could walk down dorm hallways at night without that buzzing fear. For a while, I convinced myself the whole thing had been grief mixed with teenage anxiety and an overactive imagination. Until sophomore year. One night I woke up and I knew I was awake. Not dream awake, awake awake. And suddenly I heard this man's voice right next to my ear. Deep, grown, not familiar. Not coming from across the room, from right there, like someone leaned over me. And at the same time, I felt something touch my ear. Not soft, more like bony fingertips. And the voice whispered, clear as day, goodbye forever. That's all, just that sentence. I jolted, heart pounding, and I lay there staring into the dark, trying to figure out if I'd dreamed it. But here's the detail that messed with me. My little fitness watch tracked me as awake at exactly that moment. Not tossing and turning. Awake. After that semester, I went home for break, and you'd think I'd dread going back into that house. But when I walked into my room, the closet felt normal. Like, shockingly normal. The door could stay open. No heaviness. No sense of being watched. It was just a closet. And I remember thinking, okay, see? It's done. But then the third thing happened. The one that makes everything feel connected, even though I don't want it to be. By then, my mom had remarried. My stepdad, Daniel, was solid and kind. The type of man who fixes things around the house and actually means it when he asks how your day was. He had a daughter too, my stepsister Elise, around my age. So suddenly I had two little sisters in my orbit, my biological sister Ruby and Elise. Ruby was about 13 at the time and started getting these brutal stomach pains out of nowhere. Random, intense, mysterious. Doctors couldn't find anything. Over time, we started realizing it seemed tied to anxiety, like her body was carrying something her mouth didn't know how to say yet. It went on for years, and then, one day it faded, almost as randomly as it started. And then, when she was 17, she took her own life in her bedroom. Everyone else was home, just in other rooms. Just there, and too late. A few weeks after that, the world shut down for COVID. So we were trapped in that house, grieving, with nowhere to escape. Same house where my father had lived. Same house where the chair and the closet and the night terrors had happened. And now, more than a decade later, another teenager, unrelated to my dad, who never even met him, had died there too. And the hallway outside Elise's room started feeling like my closet used to feel. Not sad feeling, not someone died here heavy. Something else, something off angle, like the air didn't sit right. Our little dog would stand outside her door and bark at the ceiling. The motion sensor light would turn on for no reason. Tiny things, sure, but when you're already shaken, those tiny things start stacking like stones on your chest. One day, I pulled my mom and Ruby aside. I told them everything. My dad, the weird paranoia before he died, the recliner, the closet, the sleep paralysis, the goodbye forever voice, Ruby's stomach pain, Elise's gradual unraveling. And what scared me most was that they didn't laugh. They both got quiet and admitted they'd felt it too. Not the same details, but that same lingering sense that something had been circling our family for years, like a shadow that didn't belong to any one person's trauma. Daniel, my stepdad, thinks we're reading patterns into grief, and honestly, I get why. He's even said, flat out, he'd rather believe we're being irrational than accept the idea that something unseen helped push his daughter toward death. And I don't blame him. If I could choose what to believe, I'd choose the version where it's all coincidence and psychology and bad luck. But still, sometimes I think about my dad driving for work, alone for long stretches. I think about him coming home quieter. I wonder if something latched onto him out there. Some darkness, some sickness of the mind that didn't feel like him. And if it did it stay? Did it drift through that house like smoke? Did it take turns? I don't know. I truly don't know. We don't live there anymore. We moved. There's peace now. Ruby is okay. My mom laughs again, in a real way. Life is steady. Normal, even. And yet, every so often, late at night, I'll remember that whisper in my ear. Goodbye forever. And I'll feel that old chill in my ribs. Not because I'm trying to be dramatic, because part of me is still standing in that doorway, staring into a dark closet, trying to convince myself that the feeling of being watched isn't real, while my skin insists it is. So, let me tell you a couple stories my mom used to swear were true. Ones that still make me pause, even though I'm not really built for believing in ghosts. Back when she was a teenager, late 70s, maybe brushing into the very early 80s, she spent a ton of time wandering around the old parts of Annapolis. You know the kind of place I mean. Brick streets, low doorways, buildings that feel like they've been holding their breath for a few hundred years. She worked shifts at this long-standing spot called the Harborside Tavern, and she and her best friend at the time, her name was Mallory, were always exploring in between school and work, ducking into places they probably had no business treating like playgrounds. One afternoon, they ended up at this historic inn they loved hanging around. There was this hallway they'd walked down 100 times, and along it was a door that was almost always shut. Plain, forgettable, the kind of door your eyes slide right past. But that day it was open. And I mean, open like it was waiting. They peeked inside and found a skinny little staircase tucked behind it. Narrow steps, tight walls. That old building smelled like dust and wood varnish. My mom called up the stairs, half joking, like, "Hello? Anybody up there?" And a man answered, just like that. A man's voice, calm as anything, calling back, "Come on up." So they did. Because of course they did. Teenagers don't have the part of their brain that says, "This is how horror movies start." At the top was a small upstairs room, pretty bare. No cozy furniture, no signs it was meant for guests. It was daytime, early afternoon, and even though there were light fixtures, none were on. The room was lit only by that flat, pale daylight coming in through the window. And there he was, an older black man, sitting quietly like he'd been there all along. He didn't seem angry that they'd wandered up, more puzzled, like they'd shown up somewhere they weren't expected to be able to reach. They talked for a bit. My mom said the whole conversation felt oddly normal, like meeting someone's uncle in the back room of a shop. She told him they'd never been up there before, and he kind of nodded, almost to himself, and said, "No, I guess you haven't." Then he mentioned that he did his work up there. My mom couldn't quite tell what he was working on. He had small hand tools, the kind you'd keep in a pouch or a box, and his hands were busy with something out of view. He was dressed simply, nothing fancy, nothing that screamed employee, just plain clothes, like he could have stepped out of any era. And there was one detail she always hesitated to say out loud, because it made her feel cruel even remembering it. But she couldn't forget it. She said part of his nose looked like it was gone. Not an injury exactly, more like it had worn away over time. As a teenager, she didn't have the vocabulary for it, so in her head, she latched onto the scariest explanation she could imagine. Some old illness, something biblical, the kind of thought that makes your skin prickle. Still, she said he was gentle, even kind. At one point, he invited them to the window, encouraged them to look out at the street below, the way you might show someone a view you love. They leaned over and looked down at people passing, cars rolling by, the ordinary world moving like nothing strange was happening one floor beneath it. When they finally left, he told them they could come back any time. He sounded sincere. And then, almost like an afterthought, he asked them to shut the door behind them on their way out. Before they left the inn, they stopped at the front desk and casually asked the staff about the upstairs room and the older man, figuring he must be some kind of maintenance guy, somebody who'd been there forever. And the people at the desk just stared at them. No one knew what they were talking about. Not, "Oh, that's Clarence," or "He's part-time," or "You must mean the guy from facilities." Just blank confusion. Like my mom had asked about a room that didn't exist. They asked a couple workers in the back too, same thing. Nobody had any clue. And these were people who'd been in that building day after day. A few days later, my mom and Mallory went back, determined to find him again. The door was shut. Not only shut, painted over, like it had been sealed into the wall. My mom said it didn't even look like a door anymore, more like a section of wall pretending to be one. And the paint didn't look fresh. It looked old, like it had been that way for a long time. That was the first story. The second batch happened at the tavern where she worked. Those were less personal, I guess. More like quick flashes of weirdness that left you unsettled, and then you had to get back to chopping onions or hauling trays. One day in the kitchen, she noticed a man standing in the far back corner, facing the wall like he was doing something important. She spoke to him. Nothing. She tried again, louder. Still nothing. And the strange part is, he stayed there all afternoon. Same posture, same spot, like he was locked into place. Finally, my mom asked someone from the front, someone who'd been there longer, who the guy was and why he was ignoring her. And the guy didn't even blink. He just said, completely flat, oh, that's one of the ghosts. Like my mom had asked where they kept the extra napkins. Now, that one? Sure, you can explain it away. Maybe it was someone hard of hearing, someone messing with her, someone in a foul mood who wanted to be left alone. Kitchens are full of odd ducks. But put it next to that upstairs room? Put it next to the painted-over door? That's where I get stuck. Because here's my problem. I'm skeptical by nature. My brain doesn't like ghosts. It doesn't know where to file them. I want stories to have explanations that click into place like gears. And still, my mom had more stories like this. Enough that even she didn't tell them like campfire tales. She told them the way you tell someone about a weird thing that happened at the grocery store. Matter of fact, a little baffled, like, I don't know, but that's what it was. And the worst part is, I've been around for a couple of her strange moments myself. Not dramatic, not movie style, just things that make you stop and look around, wondering if you missed something obvious. So I don't know what to do with it. All I know is, I can picture that hallway. I can picture that door standing open like an invitation, and I can hear, clear as anything, that calm voice answering from the top of the stairs. Come on up. So before I get into this, I want to be really honest with you. I'm not one of those people who's like, sure, everything is paranormal. But I'm also not brave enough to mess around and test it, you know? I'm firmly in the camp of, I don't bother weird stuff, and hopefully weird stuff doesn't bother me. And I'll add one more thing, just so you understand where my head was at back then. My mom wasn't really stable when I was growing up. She told me a lot of scary, inappropriate things a kid shouldn't have to carry. So even now, I'm always second-guessing myself, like, was that real? Or was my brain already primed to interpret everything as something eerie? Anyway, this happened when I was in middle school, around 2017, when I was maybe 13 or so. I lived in an apartment complex in Eugene, Oregon at the time, and one night, super late, I got hit with this weird, persistent sound. It was a whistle, but not like a person whistling a song. It was more like a bird call, sharp and patterned, like something you'd hear from an animal. The thing is, when I stepped outside, it was dead quiet. And I don't mean quiet like, oh, it's late. I mean unnaturally quiet. No cats scrapping, no distant traffic hum, no owls, nothing. Just that one whistle, repeating. I remember standing there in the doorway, kind of squinting into the dark like that would help, and thinking, why is it so quiet? That alone made my stomach feel not great. But then I did something that, even now, doesn't feel like me. I followed it. Like I wasn't even fully deciding to, my body just kind of went. I walked out of the complex and down the street, tracking the sound the best I could. It kept whistling just often enough that I could aim myself toward it. At first, it seemed like it was ahead of me, but after a little while, it got confusing. The whistle started to feel like it was coming from two directions at once, like it was ahead of me and behind me, overlapping. Not exactly echoing, because there wasn't anything around that would make a clean echo like that. It was more like my sense of direction just stopped working. And then I reached the end of the street where there was this single lamppost, the only real pool of light around. I stopped right near it, but I didn't step directly under the light. I stayed just outside the brightest part, like a foot or so away. Which is such a creepy detail, right? Like, why would I do that? Why do I remember feeling uncomfortable being too close to the light? While I'm standing there, the whistle suddenly gets louder. Not gradually. It was like something closed the distance instantly, and the sound went from somewhere out there to right inside my head. It felt like it was screaming into my ears. My whole body went tight, and I got that cold, prickly skin feeling, like my nerves were trying to crawl away from something. Then the lamppost flickered, and the second it flickered, it was like I snapped awake. That's the best way I can describe it. Like I'd been sleepwalking, except I wasn't asleep. I just suddenly felt clear enough to think, what am I doing out here? And the moment that thought landed, fear hit me properly. I turned around and started walking back home, fast but not running, because running felt like admitting I was being chased. The whole time, I had this intense feeling that something was watching me, and I kept getting goosebumps on the back of my neck, like my body was reacting to someone standing too close behind me. The closer I got to my apartment complex, the quieter it became, like it was letting me go. But when I got to my door and went inside, the whistle got close again, like it was right outside the window next to the door. I froze for a second, staring at the blinds. Then I shut the blinds quickly, like that would block sound the way it blocks sight. And I swear to you, once the blinds were closed, it stopped. Just stopped. Like someone had turned it off. After that, I stood there in the dark living room feeling confused and gross and unsettled, trying to replay it and make it make sense. Because logically, sure, maybe it was an animal. Maybe some bird makes a call like that, and the weird directional stuff was just my brain getting turned around in the dark. Or maybe I had a one-off auditory hallucination. I can accept those explanations, but what I can't easily explain is me. I was not the kind of kid who wandered outside alone at night, especially without telling my mom. I wasn't rebellious. I wasn't brave. I wasn't even particularly curious in that way. And yet I walked out like I was being pulled by a string. The whole thing has this dreamy, not quite real texture in my memory, like it happened in that strange space between sleeping and waking, even though I know I was physically moving around. So, I don't know. I'm not claiming it was paranormal. I'm not trying to convince you it was. I just know it was one of the only times in my life I felt that specific kind of wrongness. The kind where your instincts are yelling, leave, now. But you don't realize it until you're already too far from home. And even now, when I think about that whistle, the quiet street, that lamppost flickering, I still get that little chill at the base of my neck, like my body remembers it even when my brain tries to explain it away. So, this happened years ago, but I'm telling you, my body still reacts like it's happening right now. When I was little, like kindergarten little, my family moved from Ohio to a quiet suburb outside Philadelphia. We stayed in that house for a few years, and on paper, it was just a normal place. Split level, beige carpet, a backyard that looked innocent in the daytime. But the first day we got the keys, something felt off. The couple selling it to us were polite, almost too polite. As we were leaving, the woman handed my mom this homemade children's book. It was handwritten, illustrated, the whole thing, about a little boy and a guardian who would watch over him and talk to him and keep him safe. My mom wasn't the type to get spooked. She'd lived in old houses, fixed them up, dealt with creaks and drafts and pipes knocking at night. She thanked them, smiled, and tucked the book away like it was just an odd little goodbye gift. But later, years later, she admitted she thought they gave it to us on purpose, like they were trying to frame what was coming, like they already knew. At first, nothing dramatic happened, just the kind of stuff adults wave off, doors that seemed to close on their own, water running when nobody touched the faucet, tiny sounds in the walls. My mom chalked it up to the house settling. She told herself it was old wood and shifting air pressure and a kid's imagination. Then one evening, we're in the living room, curled up on the couch, watching Hercules. And there's this scene where a shadowy, snarling figure comes at Meg. Apparently, because I don't remember this part myself, I pointed at the screen and said, plain as day, That's him. That's the man who comes in my room." My mom said she went completely still, like her blood turned cold in her veins. She didn't want to react, didn't want to feed into it, didn't want to believe it. But she told me later she felt this sudden wave of dread because it didn't sound like a kid playing pretend. It sounded like recognition. After that, I remember a lot. I was the kind of kid who could spend hours in my room with stuffed animals and picture books. I'd line my plushies up like they were my little army. Bears, turtles, a battered old lion with one loose eye. I'd sit on the floor and read Berenstain Bears and Goosebumps, and it felt like my room was my whole world. Until it didn't. One afternoon, I heard my grandmother's voice, soft, close, like she was leaning right into my ear. She said my name over and over, like she was trying to coax me. "Eli, Eli, come here. I've got something for you." I popped up so fast. I was excited, smiling, already picturing her holding out something wrapped in paper. I ran into the hallway, then the kitchen, then the living room, calling out, expecting her to answer. Nobody. I found my dad in his office and asked where Nana was, and he looked up from his work like I'd asked him something impossible. He told me it was just us at home. No visitors, no one else. That should have been the moment my mom packed us up and left. But life doesn't work like that. You rationalize. You talk yourself down. You blame the wind, the pipes, the mind of a little kid. And then I started talking to someone in my room. I gave him a name, Mr. Harlan. I don't know why. It just felt right to me at the time. In my head, he looked like an old man from some old movie my parents had on once. Stooped shoulders, a long, crooked nose, the kind of face that seemed carved out of shadows. I used to talk to him like he was just there, like he was another adult in the house nobody else noticed, like he was my weird, invisible roommate. One day my mom walked in and caught me mid-conversation, sitting on the floor, staring toward the corner. She asked who I was talking to. At first, she tried to laugh it off, but I saw her eyes, how they flicked to that corner, like she didn't want to look too long, like she was scared of what she might convince herself she saw. The nights got worse. I started building these little forts in bed out of stuffed animals. I'd stack them around me like a fence, like if I had enough softness between me and the dark, I'd be safe. I didn't have the words for it back then, but I felt hunted. Every night, when my mom would kiss me goodnight and leave, I would watch the doorway and the far wall, like I was waiting for something inevitable. And then I'd see it, his shadow stretching across the room, that hunched shape, that angled nose, that posture that looked like it belonged to someone who'd spent a lifetime leaning over you. I'd pull the covers up to my eyes and whisper whatever prayers I could remember. Not because we were especially religious, we weren't, but because fear makes you reach for anything. And then the worst part became a routine. I would wake up at the exact same time. Not around the same time. The same time. Every time. 3:10. I'd bolt upright in a panic, already screaming, already running. I'd tear up the stairs toward my parents' room like something was right behind me, because it felt like it was. Most nights I never looked back, but one night, I did. I can still feel the carpet under my feet, the way my socks slipped a little as I hit the first stair. I turned my head, and there he was. Not a shadow, not a trick of light. A figure at the bottom of the stairs, fully there, like the darkness had decided to take a shape. His face was pale and sunken, with this awful twist of a smile like he was enjoying how afraid I was. And he wasn't alone. On either side of him stood two other men, wrong in a way my little kid brain couldn't explain. Their expressions were flat, almost bored, and parts of their faces looked unfinished, like skin was missing, like they were peeling out of something they didn't belong in. I didn't process it. I didn't think. I just ran harder. Even now, telling you this, my throat tightens like I'm about to cry. My parents thought it was nightmares, until they couldn't pretend anymore. They set up a baby monitor in my room, not to spy, just to listen, to reassure themselves I was okay. And one night, in their bedroom, the monitor crackled to life. At first it was just static, and then breathing. A man's breathing. Slow and heavy, like someone leaning close to the microphone, taking their time. Like they were standing over my bed, watching me sleep. My dad jumped up, my mom right behind him, and they rushed down the hall and flung open my door. Nothing, just me asleep. Stuffed animals piled around me like tiny guardians that clearly weren't doing their job. They went back upstairs. The monitor did it again. That same breathing, like it was waiting for them to leave. They ran down again. Nothing. Back up. Again. Finally, my mom snapped. She ran down the stairs so hard it sounded like she might fall, stood in my doorway, and yelled into the room like she was talking to a person she could see. She told it to leave me alone. She told it had no right. She said a prayer she hadn't said in years, words tumbling out like she was pulling them from somewhere deep and desperate. Not because she suddenly found religion, but because fear will make you try any door that might open. And then, not long after that, she made my dad agree to sell. A small group of neighbors even tried to cleanse their houses together, burning sage, saying blessings, trying to push out whatever had settled in. For a few weeks, our house went quiet. And then, it came back. The night terrors. The waking at 3:10. That feeling of someone waiting at the edge of my bed. We moved not long after. And here's the part that messes with me the most. The moment we left, it stopped. Like it was tied to that house, or that street, or something beneath it. But even though nothing followed us, sometimes my body still remembers. Sometimes I'll wake up in the dark and check the clock without meaning to, and for a split second, before I even think, I'm bracing myself, like I'm back in that old room with my stuffed animals lined up like soldiers, praying that whatever lived in the corner wouldn't step out again.